There we go.
All right, guys, welcome to episode 4 of the Reseller Happy Hour. My name is Jim, the Emperor of Fun. Of course, my phone just told me to... Okay, guys, my name is Jim. We do have a great panel this week for you. As usual, we're just here to kind of talk and shoot the shit. This is your show. If you have any questions, put them in the chat, and we will copy them over here and get to them as soon as we can. I've been selling on Amazon and eBay for, well, since early 2000s, 2005, I think. Off and on, been really hot and heavy on it since, for about 2.5 years now. Started off on Amazon, FBA, since I've gotten back into it, and then moved back into eBay once their seller policies got a little bit better. I sell mostly games and toys, but I also dabble in clothes and vintage stuff as well. And yeah, that's it for me. Let's go ahead and pass it to Eric.
Hi guys, my name's Eric Weber. I've been selling on eBay and just primarily eBay since 1997. Off and on, my background is basically retail. I've worked in a lot of different levels of retail, including store manager all the way up to the district level. My last job was working for Ollie's Bargain Outlet, which is a major discount retailer. So bring that to experience. Go ahead, Valerie. Why don't you take it over from here?
I am just recently full-time reseller. I did part-time for about 1.5 years, and just having fun.
Cool. Sally?
Hello, I am the other part of Thriftin' Bitches of Reselling, and I have been reselling for about almost years, and I resell everything from clothes to vintage electronics, and they make me happy. So I just do this as part-time right now because I'm working full-time another job. So that's all I got.
Jordan?
All right, my name's Jordan. I've done reselling off and on for the past 10 years, but just the last year I really started going full-time, about 7 months ago now. I do a lot of media, including books, video games, CDs, etc. But I do all stuff, you know, vintage, electronics, everything. Anything that can make a buck. So eBay, Amazon, and no other platforms for me.
Neil?
I'm Neil Sullivan. I'm a full-time reseller and a full-time seller of computers that work. And I sell just about everything, clothing and anything else, but I specialize in clothing.
Dusty? Were you on?
Dusty's asleep.
My name's David Hasselhoff. And, oh, sorry, that was Neil's intro. Sorry, Neil. Kind of long-running joke. But my name is Dusty. I'm Alabama Picker, I guess, tonight. eBay and Amazon for many, many, many moons, amongst other ventures in life. But I keep going back to what I love the most, which is reselling online, because there's no time clock and there's no boss. So.
All right, and I am Joe Panico. I'm the owner of Surplus Wholesale Supply and PowerPC Systems. Computer business, basically product sales service, and then my online resales business, which is pretty much anything I can make a buck on, like a lot of people. And really have been enjoying it, enjoy getting involved in this show. Just want everybody to know, if you're new tonight and haven't been here before, this is one big hangout. It's not just the panel of people you see here. Audience participation is what helps drive the show. So definitely, please pipe up with any questions or any comments, or just, you know, it could be about reselling. It could be about whether your dog's giving you a hard time going out because of lightning. You know, I mean, it doesn't matter. It's basically we're here to hang out, have fun, and shoot the breeze. So anything new and exciting this week for anybody?
It has been slow here. I went out sourcing 2 or 3 days this weekend. I don't think I got even 20 or 30 items to sell. So thrift stores have been tough. We went yard selling today, and it was bad. It was really, really slow. How about for you guys?
It was good here. I hate to say that, Jim. I don't, and I love to say that actually, but I feel sorry for you. That's what I'm saying. So, yeah, found a really good bike. It was good here. I hate to say that, Jim. It was, and I love to say that actually, but it was one of those days where we found a good bike, a lot of good clothing, a lot of good everything.
I see Coco was asking Neil what kind of computer she sells. Ha 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 ha. So even she knows you sell those imitation ones with the bite out of them.
Mm-hmm.
Those overpriced silver computers.
Yeah.
Oh, they're rose gold now, though. Come on, they're pretty.
The ones that work? Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
you know, the funny thing is, I am a big believer in the iPhone products because I think, you know, you're going to pay a ton for a smartphone anyhow, and that's just kind of the operating system that I know. But Jordan, you mentioned rose gold. It's funny when Tristan went in to get her new one. I'm the guy that looks on eBay. Okay, black brings the least amount of money. The white iPhones bring the next one, rose gold. So I'm always looking ahead, like, okay, 2 years from now when we upgrade, how much are we going to get for the old one? Buy the color. Like, I've had the white iPhones before in the past, and it's like, and the only reason was because they sell for more when you're done with them. So, kind of weird little tidbit, but I don't care what color my phone is. Cover that. You can cover that with a case. So.
I wonder if anybody else is having similar issues. I mean, I've been pretty pleased with the iPhone. The one thing I noticed we've had, and it could very well be my carrier, I don't necessarily think it's the phone, and we have to do a lot of hard shutdowns in order to kind of reset things because our messages aren't coming through. Neil, do you have any clue on, you know, it wouldn't be the phone related, right? I wouldn't think.
Who's your provider?
Yeah.
Who is your provider?
It's U.S. Cellular, unfortunately. I think we're starting to have
Somebody
issues.
answered that question.
There you go.
Yeah.
Who again?
I'm just kidding. They're a fine company. They do great work. They have a lot of good
We'll get knocked down because we mentioned the company.
They are
But I get made fun of.
people.
I've had people go, "Oh, you got AT&T, ha ha ha!" But where I live, the state I live in, AT&T has the best coverage. You know, I know if you live in like other states, it'll be Verizon or it'll be whatever. So you just ultimately do whatever's best for you. But I just didn't know who U.S. Cellular was, and found a great opportunity to poke fun at you, Joe. But I still love you.
You know what? I can be very blunt with space. After a while, they all suck. The truth of the matter is, they are in fact airwaves. You know, as we forget, they're basically airwaves and signals that go through the air. And you know, it seems like the more, you know, that this traffic, and there is traffic in the area, gets flooded or whatever. It just seems like there's eventually problems. You know, whether you're in a metal building or I don't know whether the clouds are too thick or who knows what causes it. You know. So maybe it's Neil tweaking out the other end just because he's.
Pretty much. When I see your name pop up, I just have pretty much. Yeah. No problem about that. No.
So Jordan got an upgraded camera this week.
Yeah, it was due.
It was due. I was like, man, when you joined in the Hangout right before the show started, I was like, holy cow, man, did you have a haircut before, or was that the camera?
That's the camera. No, I'm just kidding. I just got a haircut.
I also did tease him and ask him the white poster board behind him for his picture taking area. I teased him on last week's show. I was like, is there a set of encyclopedias that they've been there? Why have you not listed those? So I asked him if that poster board was hiding the encyclopedias. But he claims it's not, so I don't know.
Hey, check my eBay store. Go ahead and buy them, please.
Go ahead and buy them. So did you charge on a set of encyclopedias free shipping or charge shipping?
Free shipping all the way, brother.
But you priced them to where you pretty much know what it's going to cost, and you'll still come out okay.
Exactly.
See? I'm not the only crazy one.
Yeah, but it takes time to really know
You're the
that.
only certified crazy one, let's put it that way.
I definitely wouldn't list your first encyclopedia set with free shipping if you don't know how much it's going to cost.
Especially if you live on like one extreme coast or the other. I mean, I think you'd maybe be safer doing that if you lived in Kansas, Missouri, one of those central kind of states, maybe even Texas. But yeah, if you live on a one coast or the other, to one extreme or the other, I personally wouldn't do free shipping until I was comfortable with it. But
Not me, I charge.
I free ship everything.
I charge everything.
and you live in the middle of the country too, Neil. What's up with that?
Profit, make some money. But it also allows me to lower my price to begin with. So as they're looking at prices, I know that I have a little built-in cushion there in case. Because again, I put everything on as best offer. So it gives me some room to do some dealing and dealing as well. Whereas if I did make it free shipping, I'd be pretty glued into my prices.
But I do best offer on everything. I still run stuff on sale, and I still have free shipping.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got, come on, Neil, I know your inventory. You've got enough profit built in there.
There's never enough profit built in there.
That even if you had it at $20 free shipping versus $15 plus $4.99 shipping, $20 free shipping, and you put it on sale for $15, and they made you a $10 offer, you and I both know you'd still make money.
Yeah, but I've done it both ways, and I've not seen a big difference. So I figured, why not keep it the way I'm doing it and have that extra little cushion in the back in case I do need it. Sometimes you get that, you got something that's been sitting around for a while, and that ridiculous offer now, with that cushion in there, it doesn't look so ridiculous.
The only benefit that I personally see is sometimes it gets a little annoying when you do Markdown Manager and you have to individually see there might be a few things that you really can't do that 25% off of.
That's why you have to think about it when you're listing everything. If you're in a constant mode of putting things on sale, things like that, when you make your original price, you have to do that, or you have to go back in and readjust your prices prior to your sales. Putting things on sale, that is.
Well, and the Markdown Manager, yeah, it can be a pain in the butt until you get used to it. But a lot of times, if you have certain items, it boils down to kind of separating out the items in your mind and that you want to do a certain way or whatever. Like to me, there's sometimes I'm only listing 1 or 2 or 3 on sale a specific way because I like to change them up from time to time. If you have a bulk amount of items that you're looking to get rid of in a consistent, like if you want to do a 25% across the board for a certain select amount of items, and then that's fine, bulk them in there and just call it whatever you want to call it, and then you pick whatever specific items that you like to tweak from time to time and change up and things like that. I think that's because you can basically create as many as you want in there. You don't have to save them, you can delete them or whatever, and it kind of makes that a little bit easier to work with on something that maybe you're having a little more of a challenge. Because there are items, let's face it, that sometimes take a little more work to get rid of. Even if it's a long tail item, you're planning on sitting on it, but the reality of it is you're trying to help bump it around or bump it along, and and even if you're doing the activity in your store or you're listing or not listing, but you're just going in there and tweaking things, it's kind of a trial and error game, I guess. If you have a business model like Dusty's where free shipping consistently works for him, then it's a no-brainer. But the rest of us, and it depends on what you're selling too. I mean, in your case, Jordan, if you're selling a lot of books more than anything else, you select a certain model that works for you and go from there. So
I think it definitely depends on where you live. Because if I live in California, California's a big state. You get a lot of buyers in that state. Somebody's echoing really bad. You get a lot of buyers from that state because there's a lot of population that lives in California. So if I live in California, knowing that this % of my sales could go to this side of the Mississippi, or I could have them way, a ton of them would go way over, it'd be hard to judge what your average shipping price is, so to speak. And I think if you live more centrally located, even though Alabama's not really central, we are one zone over. At least we're not Eastern Zone. And so it is a little easier to gauge, okay, my stuff's either going to go one zone away to Eastern, one zone away right here to Central, or it's going to stay in whatever this zone is that I'm in, or then you've got kind of the Pacific / I forget what you have with the post office, 5 zones or 6 zones. You know, my worst case scenario is like California, Nevada, Utah, Washington State, New Mexico, Arizona.
There's a lot of truth to that, Dusty. I mean, the reality of it is demographic effects and things like that. But shipping in general always seems to be a topic. I mean, we talk about it, it seems like every show.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it seems like it's never going to go away because it's one of those fluid, never-ending, changing things. You know, so.
I mean, for me personally, it just eliminates the hassle of trying to figure out how much it's going to cost to ship something. I just kind of ballpark guess it. I've been doing it long enough that I have an understanding of where what it's going to cost me to ship something, and then I make a little money, I lose a little money. I'm not really concerned about that. It's just when I'm listing, I don't want to think about weighing it out and figuring out how much it weighs exactly and where it could go. I would just rather set up for free shipping. Now, occasionally I'll have an item. I'll do a calculated shipping if I'm shipping a reel-to-reel player or a big stereo receiver or something like that. I'll calculate it out and then I'll do the weighing. But 99% of my items I just free ship because it's just less hassle for me when I'm listing. The faster I can list it, the happier I'm going to be.
Right. So I just got a question from from an audience member that was about, and this was a good topic actually, cast iron. This time of year we see a lot of cast iron pots and pans and things like that in the garage sales and flea markets. Has anybody come across anything good? Brand names, things of that nature, what to look out for?
Griswold is what you want to look out for.
Griswold?
Yeah, that's
right.
Wagner, which is typically, I can't remember exactly, it's been so long, but the last one I had said Sydney on it, so I think maybe some say Sydney, some don't say Sydney. I can't remember exactly which one's better or whatever, but yeah, Griswold and Wagner.
Yeah, avoid Lodge.
Lodge is still sold today. You can order
current,
Lodge on Amazon, really, and it's still good cast iron, but you can order it really, really cheap.
Yeah. And the larger the pan, the better, the more expensive it's going to be. It's going to sell for. You get into the 10, 12, 14-inch pans, that's where the money's at.
Right. What about when you see those really rusty ones? Is that something to steer away from, or is that something you should get home, clean them? What do you do about that?
If you want to put the effort in, they're worth saving because if it's just surface rust, if it's not really pitted really bad, then you can go ahead and save them. Or if you don't want to do it, just list it that way and let somebody else deal with it.
There's actually, I was talking to somebody about this a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago actually, there's a huge market if somebody wanted to learn how to do it, and you can get on YouTube and figure out how to do it. And it essentially involves, well, you probably should YouTube that for legality reasons, but it essentially involves a battery charger and a big thing of saline solution in a big tub. Obviously, I do not recommend you try this without learning what you're doing first, because you really don't want to whatever. But you can literally leach. You can take old pans, and a lot of times, I'll find them at flea markets where they're old, they're rusty, they've got all the caked on whatever, and it's kind of, what is it? It's reverse osmosis or electrolysis.
Electrolysis, reverse electrolysis. You use 4 poles of metal. Usually people use rebar. They tie a copper wire around. I've done it. You've got tie a copper wire around it. You use washing soda solution in your liquid. It is amazingly fast and amazingly effective. It will clean up something in less than an hour. So you should need like a big 18-gallon tote to do it in. I use it for cleaning up car parts and things like that back when I was working with reselling some like 40s and 50s car parts. But it's amazing how fast it'll clean it up. It's just whether or not you want to set it up and do it.
And if you could go out and find these really rusty, really caked on ones at flea markets, really cheap, the ones that are up underneath the tables or whatever, learn how to do it. There's a niche there that somebody could totally take it and run with it if they had good access to cast iron, and then re-season them, sell them as freshly seasoned. Because there's a lot of people that want grandma's old cast iron thing, but they have no clue how to season cast iron. Yep. So if you can sell them a restored, freshly seasoned, you can get extra money for that. There's a big, huge market there that I don't think anybody's really taking and running with it. I've thought about it, but me and water and electricity is probably not a good idea. So.
It's totally counterintuitive to what your normal thought process is. Oh, I'm going to take this battery charger and I'm going to get it wet. It's definitely a bit bizarre, but yeah, it does work. You can also sandblast if you have access to a sandblaster. That cleans them up really quick as well. If you use the right media. I've done both. I've got a sandblaster and I've done the electrolysis. I don't hunt for it that much. If I see it, I'll buy it. But it's hard to get that stuff because everybody knows at Griswold the money is there. So you're going to have to pay up for it if you want to, get into that market.
So these things, I just looked up real quick. It was founded, Griswold, for example, was founded in 1865, and then they went out of business in 1957, it looks like. So, if you get one, you're going back to at least 1957. But is there any way of dating these things, or do they show dates on them, or is there just by number?
There's no way to date them. They do have mold numbers on them, so that'll help you identify it. One of the keys to look for in any cast iron is whether or not it has a ring on the bottom, and that's like a fire ring. I can't remember what they call it off the top of my head, but that will actually date it to a little bit older.
Smoke ring. It's either smoke ring or fire ring in the camera.
Yeah.
It's got a little raised. When you flip it over on the bottom side, it's got a little raised around the edge.
Now, if you're a car guy, you'd be doing like you sandblast it down and you powder coat the sucker. It would be worth squat, but at least it'd work well. Right?
I did some coffee grinders, some anti-coffee grinders using that electrolysis method, and it cleaned them up really good and reseasoned them, and then use some food spray on them. And you could turn a $25 coffee grinder into a $200 coffee grinder, so it was worth it.
Like I said, with cast iron pans and stuff. Valerie or Sally? I almost said salary. Sorry.
Valerie.
Do y'all do anything or know anything about cast iron? Have you done anything with it or cook with it or?
I've cooked with it a couple of times, but I've never liked the cast iron just because it's too heavy. But my mom, she used to cook with them all the time. Usually camping's really big at cast iron. And now I look for my own things. I haven't found anything yet, but I've got my eye out.
I heard that they one thing that you have to look for is if they are uneven on the bottom too.
Yes.
And if you make sure that if they're not, then make sure that you're listing it that way, because people want to know if they are completely even on the bottom or both out.
Yeah, I mean, some people will cook with it still, but a lot of people like them just for decoration.
Right.
I miss cast iron. We have a flat top, glass top stove, which I don't really like. I mean, and you can use cast iron on it, but it has to be really, really, really even. I didn't grow up with parents that cooked on. I mean, that wasn't really a Missouri thing. My wife, however, having grown up in the South, her grandmother was all about, there was that one cast iron skillet, and it didn't really ever get washed, and by God, don't touch it with dish liquid or anything. It just literally got cleaned out, rinsed out a little bit, that's it. Yeah. And don't look at it wrong, don't touch it.
Kind of like barbecue.
Yeah, but you left out the one important thing. Tristan keeps it around as an attitude adjuster.
That's right.
There you go.
She's she taught me how to play grit ball. That was a Medea movie. That was a Medea movie. If you've never watched Medea movies, you wouldn't get that one, but I'm sorry.
I usually the corn stick pans. You'll see those a lot, and they don't bring a whole lot of money on eBay, so they're not really picking up good for resale. But you'll get the best cornbread out of those than anything because it's like crisp all the way around. So.
I do have some.
I've heard you can get some crazy money for these things too. Like you said, not trying to get everybody crazy here. The larger the pan, the prices are huge. Like you can get up to $100 or whatever.
I've seen, and they're all numbered, so the number size corresponds to how big they are and everything. And I've seen smaller pans bring big money if it's the right mold number too. I've been to a few cast iron auctions, and it is amazing what they'll pay. I've seen pans go in the thousands of dollars. I obviously don't buy them because there's no money left at that point. But that's the type of collectors out there. They're not afraid to drop $2,000 or $3,000 on the right piece. But before you buy it, you do as much research as you can on it, because you could end up overpaying or paying retail for something that you got no money left on it. So you have to be careful with it.
If you get it for $5 or $10, jump all over it. Pretty much,
There you go, Dusty. There's your. Is that your brownie pan?
That's the Griswold. I totally forgot I had it because I haven't sold yet. That's a Griswold brownie pan. That's probably, God, I don't know how old that thing is.
It's like a cannonball.
Right along with what Sally said about a wobble, I actually had to mention that in a listing, because when I lay it flat on my desk, which is a wooden surface, if you can hear it, it does have a slight wobble to it, but not bad. And something like that, I don't know if that would make a huge amount of difference versus like a round skillet, but it's still definitely worth mentioning. I picked that up at an auction. I don't remember what I paid for it, more than I should have, but yeah, that's that Griswold right there on the bottom. I don't know if that's going to show up, but
yeah, you can see it.
Sort of, kind of, and then it actually says, it made it really easy on the back, because it says what it is. It says brownie number 9. I'm trying to read it backwards. Cake pan number 9. Erie, Pennsylvania, USA, patent 947. So that's pretty cool. That's the first time I've ever had one of those. I'm surprised it hasn't sold yet. I started at a little bit higher price and just kind of let it sit. So
yeah, it's not baking season. Get that closer to Thanksgiving, you'll see it move.
And also in the same genre, Thrift Daddy asks, anyone score chocolate molds like Terminal 99 does?
I've sold some really good chocolate molds, and they really bring good money if they're old. I had some German chocolate molds I picked up at an auction I didn't pay hardly anything for, and I was getting $40, $50 a piece for them. The key with those is making sure they're complete. You got all the pieces, tops and bottoms, and you got the little clips that hold them on. That's the key right there. And if they're cast iron, they're even older. You see a lot of tin molds. Tin molds don't bring quite as much money, but if they're interesting, they will bring good money.
I never find chocolate molds.
No, I haven't seen one either.
Me neither.
There's multiple parts to it, which I didn't even know.
I wonder if that's more of a regional thing.
I don't know. I found them from Ohio to West Virginia to Maryland. I mean,
do they stand out? I mean, when you see them, do you know what they are?
If I know what a chocolate mold is, so I know, you see chocolate molds, candy molds, you see that stuff. It does stand out to me. My wife's family, they grew up in the chocolate business, so kind of have that little bit of connection with it. But again, it's one of those things you want to sell before Easter, because that's what people are buying it for primarily, is Easter sales. So you may get lucky and find them. You should find them in garage sales. A lot of people try to make chocolate at home and it just doesn't work out. And most of the chocolate molds that are sold nowadays are plastic or a urethane type stuff. So anything that's metal is going to be at least from the 70s. And the heavier it gets, the ones I sold were super, super heavy. They were cast iron. They had about 30 little chocolate eggs on them. And those bring, $50, $60, depending on, again, and some of them will have a maker's mark on them, and the ones that have like maker's marks on them that actually tell you who made it, you'll see a lot of German names on them. Those are the ones that you kick yourself into the upper 80s, 90s, even over 100.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really know what to look for, so that's probably why I haven't picked it up.
Just look for metal rabbits, birds, Bugs Bunny type stuff. You see a lot of stuff. Everybody knows the Wilton cake pans. Just think a little bit smaller scale, and some of the same type of characters you're going to see. Eggs.
If I take it, I'm sorry, you can keep talking, Eric. I posted up a screen share so you can see what they look like.
Yep, and if you look at there's one down in the middle of it. It's actually got like 4 rabbits together. About the third row down, that's a cast iron one. That's going to be worth a lot more money. It's a heavier one. You can see that. The tin ones still bring good money, but that one right there. The key with it is you got to have the clips that hold them together, because everybody loses the clips, and so to get a complete one, that's what people are looking for. They want all the pieces to it. But again, they're out there. Estate sales is where I primarily find those, or auctions. And most people don't know what they bring, so they don't bring a whole lot of money, so you can pick them up pretty cheap. But they're really cool, and there's so many different designs. And like I said, you never know what you're going to find. See if any of those are my old list.
I wonder if they have some weight to them, too?
Pardon me?
Didn't you say they had some weight to them too? Because I know
Yeah. If they're cast iron,
Oh.
they're going to be really heavy. If they're tin, they're going to be super light. You know, it's just two pieces of tin that's got a pressed figure in it. You know, so not a whole lot to them, and they're usually between 4 and 6 inches. They're not very big. Now, the bigger ones that have multiple characters on them, or repeating characters, like I said, I had the chocolate egg one that had literally, I think it was 10 by 6 or 10 by 7, and the eggs were like an inch a piece, so it was like 6 inches by 10 inches. So you get a lot of those like that, but that's a big, heavier one. And the reason they like the older, heavier ones is it dissipates the heat slower. It doesn't heat up as much, so the chocolate actually forms a lot better with those. You don't find a lot of people using them nowadays, but they are great for decoration. And then again, you got some people that do like that stuff to cook with. So.
Eric, you're like teaching me all kinds of stuff. So,
Yeah.
Eric, you and I know this because I hadn't really hung out with Valerie and Sally and Eric a whole lot until recently, and stayed up kind of late a couple nights and hang out. But kind of met them more, and learned a lot more. Eric, you do a lot of, because of personal situation stuff. You do a lot more antiques and a lot more auctions and stuff like that as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do thrift stores for clothing, because I sell clothing because I want a bread and butter item to just keep the money rolling in. I don't like it, I don't enjoy it, but it does sell, and get into the market cheap, and you can make money at it. I really prefer old, weird, antique stuff, things that I can pick up at auction. I source probably 85% of my stuff from auction. It's just more fun, and you get a little bit more chance to compete for the item. And then in most of the auctions I go to, it's primarily resellers I'm competing against, and so we know we hit a certain level, and you can't make any money, so you're going to get it and make decent money at it.
Somebody's going to drop out, either you or them. Right?
Yeah, and when I auction, I have a limit. If I hit that limit, I'm done with it. It's a long time ago, I made one mistake and got into a personal argument with somebody over something I wanted to buy. I still have that item because I sucked all the profit and a lot of the negative out of it, but damn it, I won it. Darn it, I won that item, and it's just on my shelf.
You can say, damn it. It's my channel. You can say, damn it.
Yeah, it's Jim's channel. You can drive in your minivan, drop an F-bomb, do whatever you want to do. Yell at the kids, throw beer cans out the window at people. It's going to
Yes, but if my son hears me say that, he'll come scream at me for using bad language. So.
Good for him.
My son is autistic, so he has different ideas about things. So.
And Eric, before we get off the subject, I just want to ask you one other one, because I'm talked to a guy today about it, and that is copper. You find some of these old copper pieces.
Yeah, you'll find old copper cooking molds, Jello, just food molds in general is really cool. I like old copper. I like stuff where you see where it's actually been you know what a dovetail joint looks like in wood.
Yeah.
They did it in copper as well. I'm sorry, buddy. See, I told you I got caught. But yeah, if you look like, I might even actually have one. Hang on, let me grab something over here real quick. Let's see. All right, I'm going to hold this up. Let's see if you can see If you look right here, you can actually see the dovetail. Now, they don't do it the same as wood, but there's actually like a little piece and then a little piece. That'll date it back into the 1800s easily.
Oh, really?
So if you see, you'll see it all the way from those huge copper pans down to the little egg boilers and things like that. You can get into copper really cheap. That's what's nice about it. And again, it doesn't take up much space and they're light. You got copper. People will buy it for scrapping it, but most people will buy it for decoration. If it's got white on the inside, that actually means it's been tinned and it's safe for food. You can't cook right in copper. It has to be tinned on the inside. That's when it's really cool, is when you find an old piece and it's still got the tinning inside. That tells you it hasn't been used that much.
What kind of values are you looking at in copper pieces?
This piece is kind of a small piece. I'm into it for like $1, $1.50. I think I've got it listed for $30 or something like that. So
And that would be from how old?
This is probably, because of the way it's made, this is probably 1880s, 1890s.
Wow, when it's only $30.
Yeah, there's a lot of copper out there, so I don't really. And again, it's a small piece. This piece is only 4 inches deep by 5 inches across. The real value's in some of the big copper pans, the ones that you see that had like the little dish outs in them. You got like 8 or 6 of them in there. Those are egg pans. A lot of people love those for decoration, and those bring easily $40, $50, $60 depending on the condition and how big it is. I've had some as big as 16 inches across, and those brought $80.
Any brand names to look out for?
No, most of them will never have a name on them because average Joes were making these. They weren't really making them in shops. So they're really cool, and like I said, you can find them. That's the stuff you're going to find in an antique auction. And entry at an antique auction is probably under $20 or something like that. So if you can take 20 and turn it into 80, that's good enough for me.
Eric, the other thing too, I know everybody, first thing I think of is Google. So is there any specific sites that you think might be a good, thing, or I should say, a tip for people to kind of search in particular for maybe stuff like this?
Well, for like cast iron, there's cast iron websites. For copper, there's copper websites. There's almost always a dedicated collecting website. You got to Google it to find the website, but once you find the websites, bookmark them. My bookmark list is probably 300 bookmark sites long, just from things that I've gone to and looked up something and I saved it. It's just, especially when we get on the Facebook group, we tell people to make sure you do your research. Make sure you do your research, because when you're out there thrifting and buying and you're hitting these yard sales and you're at auctions, a lot of times it's fast and furious and you don't have time. So if you've done a lot of research, you can remember kind of what things bring. I don't look up everything I buy just because sometimes I don't have the opportunity. I do a lot of online auction buying, which is local auctions here. A lot of the auction houses have a local setup, and there's usually 10 to 15 auctions a day closing. And because of my situation at home, I don't get to get out in the summertime, especially, to get out and do much. So that's how I shop. And I
know a brief little bit of your history. I don't, you can share whatever you're comfortable with, or not whatever you're not comfortable with. Obviously, don't share. But I just wanted to ask: did you grow up with any kind of background in antiques, or was this just kind of, hey, I want to do this and I want to learn as I go, and I find it fascinating? Is this like acquired knowledge over the last 30 years or the last 5-10 years?
Most of mine is acquired. I grew up with a love for auctions. My mom was an auction goer, and so she kind of taught me the auction game. But most of my knowledge has probably been acquired in the last probably 2008, 2007. I was not working as a full-time reseller until really in the last year and a half, and that was because I was working retail. I was a district manager. Most of my retail experience has been on the loss prevention side, so I kind of worked my way through. I worked for Lowe's, I worked for Kmart, I worked for Ollie's, I worked for Hastings, I worked for a local grocery chain, I ran a liquor store, but I was always doing selling on the side because it was just fun. And back in the when I worked for Kmart, we shut the Kmart I was working down. And I cleaned that store out at the very last day on all their cameras, and I made almost $20,000 off of camera sales going from Kmart that I was paying $25 a cart full, and then I just flipped it onto eBay, and that got the bug going. But because I was crawling my way up the corporate ladder in retail, I was always, I make good money doing retail, but I'm gonna keep the stuff on the side. I love selling things on the side. And every now and then you get a monster score. I said, I like to talk about my best score was probably I bought a box of paperwork for old cars, and it turned out I had some Ferrari paperwork from 1952, along with a letter from Enzo Ferrari that he had signed, and I sold that for $4,000 overseas.
Wow.
So
that's the kind of stuff that gets your adrenaline going, and then you're like, I can't stand behind this retail counter or whatever. I've got to do this.
Yeah.
But you're always trying to one up yourself too, I think. So you're always going to be trying to beat that one though.
Yeah, for me the good thing was I wasn't working on the floor in retail for the most part. Most of my stuff has always been behind the scenes. Working loss prevention, I'm stuck in a hot office with a bunch of cameras. When I went to work for Hastings, I had a region. I had 24 stores. I was actually down in Dusty's area, and I had all of Arkansas. I had Missouri stores. I had Tennessee stores. I had Alabama, Georgia, Indiana, and Kentucky, and so I had that huge area. But then, I worked for Hastings for a little bit more than a year, and the writing was on the wall back in 2008. And I said, you know what, this company's not going anywhere. My boss was a drunk. He had to go to rehab. It just wasn't worth it to me. So I got a chance to go over and work for a company called Ollie's Bargain Outlet and spent 5 great years with them. It was a private company at the time. They're public now. And got to see really the inner workings of a growing company. When I started, they just opened their 70th store, and when I left the company, they were at 140, 150, and I think they're over 200 now.
We just got one here. They're like we were talking about that. They're more of a northeastern chain and working their way down. And we just got one here in Huntsville. But ironically, you and I were talking the other night about Hastings as well, and they just finally filed for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I went down there, and I flew down there for the interview. I had to go to Amarillo, Texas, and the whole plane flight got all screwed up. I ended up having to rent a car in, I think it was Lubbock or something. I had to drive to Amarillo to get to the interview. And I walk in, it was a very small operation, and the research that I'd done on the company beforehand, they said, oh, we're going to have 500 stores, and this is our plan and everything. I'm like, great, that's what I want. I want to be with a growing company. Well, I found out that the information I'd looked up was actually old information, and back in 2001, they'd had to restate all their earnings for the big tech bubble that hit back then, and they hadn't opened up a new store in years. We opened up one store in 2008 and shut down 3 others, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to get stuck with this. I want a dead-end job, so... And that was an interesting site because they have the Go Hastings website, and they were actually running that out of every single store. So if you bought something on Go Hastings, it could have come from any store in their company. It just depends on who had it in stock. And they would every morning they'd get their purchase list from Go Hastings, and the people in the back room would have to package it up and mail it out. So it wasn't like a centralized location. It was whoever Jimmy, Joe, Bob was in the back room was shipping that day. That's how you got your stuff.
Wow.
So we had a question from the Crazy Card. Share your most unusual finds. Maybe we kind of go down the line a little bit. We could start with some of our newest guests here. Eric, we've had John a little bit here, but why don't we start with either Valerie or Sally and see if they want to pop in here for a minute and give us some idea what maybe they've had that was a really unusual find. And then we'll also see if the audience themselves, maybe has any that they want to share as well.
I could start. My best find ever was probably a Hulk doll that I found at the Salvation Army. I paid $49 for it, and it sold for $68 overnight. It was an amazing auction, and that really started my love for reselling and just the feeling that you get, whenever you're finding something that's extraordinary and you think it's just a normal thing, somebody really wants this and they're gonna pay the money for it, and that started me.
What was I had to turn your volume up where I could hear you. What was it?
It was a Hulk doll. It was only about, I think it was 12 inches tall, and the bottom part was hard, like an action figure, but the top part was mushy, so that you can, flex him and move him certain ways.
Like Stretch Armstrong. Nobody probably remembers who that was.
I know who
Oh,
that
yeah,
is.
I do.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be like the only old guy, and I was going to go Stretch Armstrong. People would be like, who's that?
Rock, dude.
But anything like that, certain action figures like that are going to go.
Cool.
Somebody's going to want something like that.
How about you, Jordan? Anything unusual on your radar that you've come across?
You know what? I think this is a cool thing to talk about, actually, for this question. I mean, it's not absolutely crazy unusual, but it's a super cool, unique find. I bought out all these vintage knives at a Goodwill, and I actually got them to go half price. So I paid 50 cents for over 200 vintage knives that were still
Wow.
brand new sealed. And
Wow.
I've been popping them off for anywhere between 14 and 25 or 30 bucks a piece.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah.
it's a unique find. It's not that what we say at first, unusual. But you know what? It is unusual because where the heck do you find new old stock 80s knives that are still sealed?
What kind of brands?
Echo. So it's not an expensive brand, but new old stock vintage does well.
So they
eBay,
were
Amazon.
These were like big knives or something?
Butcher knives, yeah. But they still ship first class, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely.
For me, that I normally don't get into. I was trying to see if I could find a photo of it. Unfortunately, I can't find it fast enough here. But anyway, I tried something recently. I made money. I didn't make a lot of money on it, but part of it was just being impatient because it was something I didn't want to have laying around too long. But it was a 1940s vintage wire recorder. It was really cool. I went to a local. If I find a picture, I'll pop it up later. But I went to a local kind of like indoor flea market thing that they have here at the fairgrounds, and he also had a vacuum there that I was almost tempted to buy and donate it to the Tallman House Museum here because it looked literally like somebody built a wood box with 4 wheels and almost looked like a broom handle on it. It was very crudely made, but it was what they used for a vacuum back then. But this wire recorder, what was really cool about it is it actually had these dual disc wheels, and I found out that one of them later on, I found out one of them was missing, but that really didn't matter. It was irrelevant. This thing was in pristine condition, and it literally was probably not much thicker than a lightweight fishing line is the best way to describe it. It was so fine, this wire. And when I started doing research on them to see what they had, there were actually people who had recordings of some, that they had picked up, and you could hear it sounds like when you're listening to somebody through one of those
strings.
What is it?
Like the cup on the string type thing.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounded like the Mac, or like when they listened. Dusty had that record player with the horn that he sold, the Victrola or whatever. It had that little crackly and whatever. But this one, actually, there was a reel that had stuff on it, but I couldn't let that go with it because it looked like it was from an attorney's office. So I didn't know what was on it, and it was confidential, that kind of thing. But very, very cool thing. And the funny thing, the story about it behind it when I sold it, now this was what made it worth it, even though I only probably made 20 bucks on the thing, because I didn't want to have it as a long tail laying around. It was weighed a ton. It had tubes in it. The guy that bought it actually lived here in Wisconsin, and he had told me a story. He says, yeah, he says, I'm picking this up. He said, actually more for parts. He said, I have a friend of mine, when we were in high school, gave me one of these. He said, and I've been restoring it for years. He said, we're coming up on our 50th, school reunion. And he said, I'm just about complete. He said, there's a handful of parts left. He said, and I think you're going to have all the parts I need in this thing. He said, to finish it off. He said, and it's literally going to be like brand new. And he said, when I see him this summer, he said, I want to give it back to him. And I thought that was just the coolest story, to have, And to me, then it really made me feel good that even though I let it go and didn't make a whole bunch of money on it, it was worth it, And they were the nicest people to talk to, and just really cool. So I mean, if you see something like that, even if it's a little out of your comfort zone, and it's a little unusual, sometimes there's always a story that can come out of it.
That's usually yeah, and then that can be your stuff that's profitable too. So we just got joined by OG Picker, and OG will let you do a brief introduction of who you are, and we are discussing your most unusual find. Not to put you on the spot, but if you can multitask while you're introducing yourself and think of your most unusual find, I know you can.
No problem. So I'm OG Picker. I am a reseller out of Southern California. I sell on pretty much everywhere, but Amazon, eBay, Mercari, OfferUp, a couple other places, someplace I can sell, and there's little impact to the bottom line to do so, there's a lot of new platforms, and you get a chance to throw it out there. My concept is basically the more eyeballs on the page, the better, and the less those eyeballs count, the better. So that's what I do. Most unusual find.
Strangest, weirdest, rarest, most valuable, most unusual.
Yeah.
The one that left you scratching your head the most. Why would somebody buy that?
A couple of weird things that I've gotten. I picked up. There's a kind of a long story, but I run an alert in Craigslist for packing materials, bubble wrap and stuff like that, and I get all of my stuff for free. I rarely buy anything. Well, I had an Oreo that was about to drop off in the glass. You know how that goes. You all know the feeling. Okay? Anyway, I got an answer for one of these things one time. She said she had some bubble wrap and stuff. So I went over there. We got talking with her. Turns out this lady is like 80 years old, and for the last 15 years, she was the lead costumer for UCLA Theater Department. And she had all kinds of stuff that she used to sell on eBay and years ago and things like that, and buy a lot of stuff from eBay and everything else. So we got to talking and just talking and talking and talking. She started giving me stuff. I got 50 pieces of this awesome hammered aluminum, vintage mid-century hammered aluminum decoration servingware stuff, you know. And she gave me a whole bunch of that stuff. I mean, these pieces are big. This is 15 and 18-inch hand bas-relief carved aluminum serving trays, and you know, bananas and fish and bamboo and stuff on them. They were cool, very 50s. I remember my mom saying that. And then one of the other things she gave me is this huge thing called a theater standee for when Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring came out in 2001, I believe. So this thing is huge. It's like 5 feet tall by 4 feet wide. It bulbs. It's three layers, and it blows out. It's a great big thing they set up in the lobby of the theater to promote the movie. And this is something she had. She just gave it to me. Never been out of its box, really. Well, I took a part of it out because I repaired some of it and took pictures of it, but then I put it back in. So that was the two weird things that I've gotten. And those both came from her.
That's cool. How much bubble wrap did she give you?
I still got, I think 3 big, huge, big black trash bags full of bubble wrap at all kinds of different lengths and small usable pieces, you know, not like rolls, but fairly large pieces and stuff. A couple of bags of peanuts, a whole box full of this, about quarter-inch maybe, or a little less, 5/16, semi-rigid foam. White, fairly rigid foam, but it's in rolls. Great for like rolling up glassware and stuff like that. You know.
Hey, oh geez, this stuff look familiar there? It's a picture.
Oh yeah, that's pretty unique piece. I haven't seen that. These things, the things I had were they're up on Etsy right now, and but I have a bunch of them. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, it's hand formed.
Is that a frog, Eric, or what is it supposed to be?
Yeah, it's a frog. It's made out of aluminum. It's hand carved. It's actually dated 1979.
Mm-hmm.
This is Arthur Court stuff, and I paid $12.50. I got it up for I think for $74.99. But yeah, it's got jade eyes. It's really just kind of a cool little thing. But he was talking about the hand carved aluminum, and it's out there. So
that's cool. Tristan collects Arthur Court, but we've never had anything like that old or seen a frog. Ours is more like anything with bunny rabbits, like the plates and stuff like that.
Well,
so what's your weirdest thing, Eric, besides the really cool 1952 Ferrari thing, which is pretty freaking awesome? So I don't know if you'll be able to top that one, but
weird. Not for value. I mean, I've had a lot of weird. You know, when you buy antiques and weird stuff. I mean, I've got my little denture holder thing right here. So if you
Wow.
Yeah, I was at an auction and it was an old dentist that had passed away, and they were selling off his entire stuff. So I bought a few pieces, but the weirdest thing I think I ever bought, and I had no idea what it was. I was at a camera auction. Now this was like the storage auction that everybody wishes they were at. Guys I know that ran a local auction house, and all they would do is they would go buy storage units, and they bought a storage unit full of filing cabinets. They were Han filing cabinets. They were all locked. They didn't know what was in them. They just bought them, and it turned out they were from a guy who was a very famous photographer. And I was at the first auction, and they sold over $100,000 worth of cameras and lenses out of the auction. I could not compete, obviously, because I'm a cheap reseller, and I like to spend dollars, not hundreds of dollars. And so I bought this box, and it had a bunch of cardboard tubes in it, and like a wood box. And so I had no idea what it is. I paid $4 for it, and I brought it home, and I was working a lot, so I gave it to my daughter to actually do some research on it. And it turned out it was a camera blimp. And what they are is you put a 35 millimeter camera inside of it, and then you would close it all up, and it would mute the sound of the click. They would use them on movie studio while they're shooting the films. They could take pictures and get the stills from the movie theaters. And that's how they would do it. They would use this thing called a camera blimp, and I'd never heard of it. This is from the 40s, 50s, and it was cardboard tubes in a box. And I sold that for $480 on eBay. So,
wow.
I found the pictures.
Just, you know what I'm going to say? As soon as I saw that denture thing he had there, maybe you could work a deal with him to go with that dentist chair he got sitting there.
I almost bought a chair just like that, Dusty, except mine was from a gynecological office from the 1920s.
Hey, people buy stuff like mine is not still sitting there; it's being stored. It's actually still on the back of the truck, but at least it's in the warehouse.
Okay, correction, laying there.
It's not going to be rained on now because it's in. I pulled the truck into the warehouse, and I've got to go to Harbor Freight or somewhere and figure out what kind of hoist I can get really cheaply that'll fit the beam and figure out how to get a 400-pound chair off the back of the truck by myself, which I know I can do it if I get the right kind of pulleys, but
I would have bought it except the car I'm working on is down, and that's my only car to transport it in, but otherwise I would have paid for it. It was $60 is what it finally brought at auction, but I think that was a steal because it was in gorgeous condition. I bought a few things from that auction. Most of my stuff was like some transcription stuff to do recordings and things like that with, and I spent $10 and I'll make probably $125 off of it.
Jim Bennett, the Emperor of Fun.
Let's see, most unique or unusual item.
Holy cow, just for the record, your audio is working now and not garbled, so feel free to speak up the rest of the show.
Awesome. Okay, good. So when I owned the thrift store, I had an opportunity, and I did buy a piece of a Stewart's Root Beer restaurant. It was a Coke cooler, but it was wooden. A Bakelite handle. It had both the Coke and the Stewart's Root Beer logos on it. Probably from the 1920s. Bought it for $50. So that's probably the most unique, unusual thing, kind of. And you see Coke stuff, and it's all signs and coolers and stuff like that, bottles. So this was kind of a unique Coke item. I've also, when you buy storage lockers, you come across all sorts of stuff like Model T, car parts, and I found like an old DeWalt drill, table drill, handsaw, old stuff, that kind of stuff. Also, I found a vintage hand-carved African ostrich egg when I was at the thrift store. And funny story about that, I looked it up on eBay or others like it because you can't find one exact, and they were going for $500 to $1,000. I set it up on the counter. I'm like, okay, I'm going to display this somewhere in the store, and I turned around and it rolled off the counter and smashed on the floor and broke into about 1,000 pieces.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was not a good day for me. But yeah, I mean, that Coke thing was pretty cool. I sold it in about 20 minutes to somebody local that just came in. I didn't even have a chance to bring it in the store. He was like, yeah, I'm looking for Coke stuff. And I'm like, oh, well, check out what I got in the back of the van. And he's like, all right, sold. He's like, whatever you want for it. I was like, 150. Which if I would have listed on eBay, I might have got 200 or 250. So it's not like really high value. It's just really cool because I'm from New Jersey, which was where Stewart's Root Beer kind of started. So it was just cool to me to find that kind of stuff.
Cool. I don't think I could name. I mean, I have so much. I mean, obviously, I've been teased about a dental chair, and we've had one point in time, we had a 1957 Continental jukebox in our living room that was in parts. I mean, it's just, I don't even think it phases my wife anymore when I bring stuff home, but I think that's part of, I've had 2 prosthetic legs that I've sold over the years. I think if I had to name one item that really kind of stuck out that was something I kind of worked out. I didn't really want to hold on to it, but I wish I would have gone a different direction with it and sent it to an actual auction somewhere instead of selling it to a private individual. I had a set of motorcycle saddlebags that were dated 1943 or 44 that had on the flip side of them, the part that would face the motorcycle, had little bitty tiny eagles and swastikas on them. And I dated them to being specifically off of Nazi motorcycles. Even back then, eBay had the whole policy of no excuse me, of no swastikas, no whatever. So I was kind of stuck with trying to liquidate them otherwise through some military collector websites. But those were pretty cool. I contacted the guys that did that show. I can't remember. They're out of Atlanta, and it was the guys that had the auction house place where they bring stuff in. Anybody remembers the name of the show? This has been 5, 6, 7 years ago, and they were interested. And I was actually going to consider driving them over to Atlanta and see if I could get on TV or whatever. But you know, to let them consign them, and I ended up just flipping them to somebody else. But those were pretty cool. Just to kind of know the history, even though there's a lot of hatred behind it, but the history of where they came from.
Yeah, I think I've had some Nazi stuff, and it's difficult to get rid of if you don't move it through a live auction. I don't buy it, but sometimes you end up with it. Right. So.
Well, you know, I had papers once. It was basically someone from Austria, and they were their passport or they found their papers. You have to be around from one place to another. And, of course, the swastika was on the front. So I put it on for, it wasn't mine, there were clients at the time. So I put them on, and eBay put, what's on them. So I re-entered them and put them as, these are historical documents. And I must have tried again, and they went through.
I had a gold swastika from Tiffany & Company, and sold it once. The guy sent it back saying he didn't think it was real. He paid less than scrap value for it, and I eventually just turned around and sold it for scrap value because I listed it back on eBay, and then somebody reported it and got it pulled from there, so I just sold it for scrap.
But was that old enough? Was that old enough, Tiffany? Because originally the swastika symbol was a symbol of joy in like the 1920s. After,
it goes all the way. I mean, if you look at the history behind the swastika, you can find it all the way back in India, as in European India, going all the way back, centuries. It's a symbol that's been around. It's the American Indian symbols use it all the time. So it's, people get a little crazy for it. I have no idea if it was 1940s Tiffany Company, if it was 1890s Tiffany Company. I really didn't care. eBay had pulled it down, and so I couldn't list it anywhere else. So at that point, I was just trying to get some of my money back, and I didn't pay scrap value for it, so I made a little bit of money on it, but not as much as I'd hoped. But I don't like to mess with the stuff because unless you have a live auction to deal with, and I do a lot with live auctioneers. I know a couple that I actually work with, so that way I can flip things through them, things that are just not eBayable. It's a lot easier to deal with that. And when I lived down in West Virginia, when I was working for Ollie's, 90% of the stuff I was buying, I was flipping through live auction. It was fast, easy money, and I had a very good auction house I was working with down there. So
now, isn't the Nazi symbol inverted from the Indian symbol?
I didn't even research it that much. I just know that it looks the same, and most people don't make the distinction between the two.
You think idiots are really that fine-tuned? Okay. No.
You're going to go, but eBay, it's backwards, and they're going to be like, we don't care.
Yeah.
All right, it's my turn. Jumping in.
Come on, Beth.
So, most unusual. It was kind of like the most awkward place that I found it, actually. I was at a yard sale, and the lady had just a couple of boxes out in the yard, and it was kind of like rainy, and so the boxes were kind of muddy, and it was really awkward, but she was a very elderly lady. She was probably in her 90s. And so I was being polite just by, looking through the boxes and just kind of saying, oh, there's a bunch of mud here. But I did find a, am I echoing?
You are a little bit, but I don't know who it's coming off of. But
Okay. But I looked in a box and I found a jacket. And started looking at it. My hands were muddy from the jacket, and I pulled it out, and it was actually an Air Force bomber jacket. It was authentic. And so I pulled it out. I said, how much do you want for this? And she said 25 cents.
25 cents?
25 cents, 1 quarter.
Holy cow.
And that's all I bought. And I felt bad because that's all I bought. But I made $125 off of it. I mean, I cleaned it and conditioned it, and I worked really hard on that jacket, but I made $125 off of it.
Wow.
And I was amazed. I was amazed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. I've got a North Face or whatever light parka that's been to Antarctica.
Oh, very cool.
It's listed on eBay right now.
Wow.
How do you tie that back with the what provenance do you have to go with it? Just out of curiosity, or what's the backstory behind it?
You talking to me?
Yeah. You talking?
Basically, I just have a verbal from the seller. I bought it for $3, and it's my size. That's why I bought it. Nice yellow parka, and but I remarked about the patch because it's got a patch on the left breast that had Antarctica in about 4 or 5 different languages, and a four-way scene of a seagull, a polar bear, whales, and something else. A picture on there. And I asked her about that. She says, "Oh, that's my son's, and he's a geologist or something. I don't know what." But he said that was his. They gave it to him when he was down in Antarctica.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, $3 for anything North Face, you're gonna make some money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Michael Cole asked a little while ago about silver and Morgan dollars in particular, but silver's a great topic right now because silver, I've been watching a little bit. Spot just went to 1746 or something. And there's a lot of stuff during the summer, especially you're going to see, and Dusty, you're great at finding this kind of stuff. But whether it be coins or silver jewelry, silver forks, knives, spoons, what do you look out for? What are the markings? How do you identify it?
The number one thing,
when you look at coins, are you looking for just melt value, or are you looking for intrinsic value?
the number one thing, first and foremost, if you're going to go to yard sales, have and look for any kind of scrap, sterling, whether it be sterling gold, whatever. Have one of these. It's a jeweler's loop. You can order them from China off of eBay for they're going to take a month and a half to get there, but you can order even the crappiest ones for 99 cents free shipping. Buy 4 or 5 of them. Keep one in the office, one in each car, one on your keychain if the end of it doesn't break and it falls off the keychain because it's made in China. But look for 925. Look for sterling. Look for the word silver. Look for. People miss. That's something. I think Thrift Daddy's in the audience. He does a lot of that kind of stuff. That's something that people miss a lot. Even with thrift stores that are really good about checking everything in the back room, they miss a lot of markings, and he makes a decent amount of money off of it. It's just look for the markings.
But Dustin, what are the markings? Because there's 2 different markings, if I'm not mistaken, on silver. There's .386, and that one says sterling. Because isn't there an English marking and an American marking?
I think there is an English. I mean, if it says any kind of numbers or anything, that's usually an indicator of you might want to check it out a little further. I think there's I can't remember, gold is 800, it's been so long. But typically you'll find 925 or sterling. You'll find 925, which basically means that it's 92.5% sterling. So you do have to factor that in, you know, of course, when you're doing it. And there's a lot of, you go to Google and put in scrap sterling calculator, there's calculators, you put in how many grams it weighs, whatever, because you got to consider that unless something says sterling, says 925, it's 7.5% not sterling, which is not a huge ordeal, but like when I came into that flatware and stuff here a while back, I had to factor that in, you know, when I was pricing it, so.
One other thing to look
going
for
to decide whether it's going to be melt or it's going to be, oh my gosh, this is like Paul Revere.
if you buy it for melt value, as that's your limit of what you're buying for, you're always going to be fine.
Exactly.
That's what when I buy silver, that's what I look for is what's melt value, and then I know I can get that much out of it. Now again, and that's because you can always sell it for a little bit more than melt value on eBay because speculators will buy it. One other marking to look for is 800. 800 is also silver.
800, that's what I was thinking. Sorry.
Yeah, that's French, I believe. French or
I
German.
can't remember. It's been a while.
But different countries have different markings. But sterling is always 925, or 925. You'll see that a lot as well. But yeah, if you buy it for melt value, you're always going to be fine. I know Michael was talking about Morgan dollars. Morgan dollars unless they're in horrible condition, are probably worth more as a coin than as a silver value. But you can still sell it as silver value. I mean, and one of the things about selling silver coins on eBay, you will list it and almost guarantee that it will be gone within 10 minutes. It just sells that fast if you list it right at melt value or a little bit more.
Now, if you're getting in, and I've known people that did this, if you're getting in and trying to buy, you know, if silver's at $17 an ounce or whatever right now, and you're trying to buy Morgan dollars for, which I can't remember. I think do they weigh in exactly an ounce? I can't remember what their weight is. Let's just say
they're an ounce, but they're 90% silver. They're not 100% silver, so they're only 90%.
But if you're trying to buy, if the biggest thing with Morgan dollars, who was it asked the question? Michael Cole. The biggest thing with Morgan dollars, unless you know what you're doing, like he said, buy them at scrap value, because unless you know how to spot whether or not a coin's been cleaned, if the coin's been cleaned, it kills the value. You've got to know a lot about condition, about toning, about the rainbow coloring on them. You've got to know different grades, and I mean, it's stuff you can learn. It's stuff you can figure out on your own. Don't let it be intimidating, but don't sink $40 into a Morgan dollar coin just because you think it's an extremely necessarily because you think it's extremely rare or whatever, because it might be banged up. You know, it might be worth scrap. It might be worth $17.
Yep.
So that's the
takeaway. Play around in it, but if you buy it like Eric said at $17, it's a good way to learn. That's how I learned what little bit I know about, you know, coins and stuff like that. Just came through trial and error.
And you can always pay a couple bucks extra because you're not going to get anything at spot anymore. So if you go out there and you see a Morgan for $20, jump on it. You got nothing to lose.
Most Morgans that I see at live auction. Yeah. Most Morgans I see at live auction go for $22.50.
Which is not crazy.
It's not crazy. It's $5. It's actually about $6 over spot. But a lot of these guys are coin dealers, so they know what they're buying. They know they're buying for coin value as well. So, but you know, they're not going to get killed too bad on spot. If silver goes over $40 an ounce, then they're going to be sitting pretty. So, you know, I don't mess with.
I found this at the Goodwill the other day.
That's the 1 ounce. Is that a 1 ounce or is that a 10 ounce?
No, that's actually a kilo coin.
Kilo? Okay.
I'm just kidding.
It's ceramic, but that, you know, it doesn't have the same value to it.
Wait, what was that made out of? Hold that back up again.
No, this is actually 0.99 silver kilo coin.
Yeah, so that's.
I collect silver for fun, but I just thought I'd add that there are some people that make a really good profit with jewelry at the Goodwill. And other thrift stores alike, you know, Savers, whatnot. But there's this one guy I always run into at Goodwills in the area, and all he looks for is Goodwill missing out on jewelry, mispricing it, you know. And you find one gold piece, that can make you a heck of some money.
Yeah.
A lot to go through. A lot to go through.
I had a friend that used to buy, and I don't know, we had a rescue mission type, one of those thrift stores that is one of those that has like, they're in a bigger city and they have like 8 locations or whatever. And she used to buy the junk jewelry bags, the quote unquote junk jewelry bags for 99 cents or $1.99. And she'd look and she'd find 1 or 2 keychains or whatever she'd get her money back off of. But out of every 10 of them she bought, 2 or 3 of them would have sterling or gold in them, and she'd just put them in piles, and then she'd scrap it all out. She made really good money buying these. I mean, I don't know how they do it in y'all's thrift stores, but they would have them in the display case, and it was, or up on top of the display case up front, it was just these big plastic bags that they had stapled shut, and it was like 99 or $1.99. And I think that's what, I think Thrift Daddy, not necessarily Goodwill or whatever, but I think there was somebody else that did that as well too. So
yeah, our Goodwills have them for about $40 a bag.
Really?
Wow.
They're pricey here too, yeah.
Yeah,
the Greedwill.
Yeah, I like going to estate auctions, and especially when they're held at somebody's house, and they're pulling the whole house out, just dumping it in the yard. You can usually pick up jewelry boxes, and I find diamond rings, I find gold earrings in them all the time, doing it that way. And then you can always sell the costume stuff as well. So the last 3 jewelry boxes I bought, I paid $15 a piece, and there was gold and silver in each box. So yeah, but
awesome.
those usually come around in the spring and in the fall.
Eric, do you test your gold, or did you look at the markings, or what?
If it's marked, I'm not too worried about it. But if it's unmarked, then I will test it. You acid test it. It's easy. Now I use the stone where you scratch it on the stone. You don't want to acid test right on the item. You'll destroy your stuff at that point. But yeah, you can buy an acid testing kit on Amazon for under $10, I think it is. So
I'm totally lazy. I acid test on the item in an inconspicuous spot. I scratch it off a little bit with the end of a box cutter, and if it's something that, if it's something that looks like it's has a lot more value because it's a Tiffany piece or whatever, but I want to test it. And there's a lot of fake Tiffany out there too. That's one thing I want to mention. Be really careful if you get Tiffany stuff. It's going to be marked 925, and chances are it's probably going to be real silver to some extent. But there's a lot of really good fake Tiffany out there, and eBay is really extremely protective over that.
And there's a lot of people out there don't know how to test. When you're testing, are you testing for 14 karat, 18 karat?
You can you buy a gold testing kit. Will come with different acids, and they're all different based on the carat rating of the. What it is, you get a little black stone, and you take the piece and you just scratch it on there, and it'll remove like a line of gold. And what you do is you put a dropper of like 18 karat if it's not marked. Put a dropper of 18 karat on it. If it's it'll eat it away if it's not that level. If it's a 14 karat, you go down to 14 karat. If it doesn't eat the gold right then that's a 14 karat piece. You know what it is based on what level acid, whether or not it eats it or not.
And when he says eat it, when he says eat it, it'll literally bubble and react with any kind of base metal. It'll turn a greenish color. It'll just do funk. Versus if it's real, if you test something with like 18 karat acid and it's true 18 karat, that drop of acid is just going to sit there. It's not going to do anything.
So that's why I always start highest from the lowest. So you start.
There's some great YouTube videos out there on how to do it. It's not terribly complicated, and you can buy those little test kits for like $8 or $10 free shipping.
Yeah, it's super cheap, and be careful with it because it is acid, so it will burn you if you get it on your fingers. But it's not that difficult, and it's great for unmarked pieces. It can really save you. You can really make a lot of money on unmarked pieces because of that. And it will also help verify that if you do have a 14 karat or an 18 karat marked piece, you'll see a lot of 18 karat marks that are not real. 18 karat gold jewelry is not that common. Right. So you definitely want to test all that type of stuff, and then, like I said, then you can actually put in your listing that it's been tested and it's guaranteed at that point. So
I have a question.
Yep.
If it's plated, will it react the same as if it's not? If it's
yeah, it'll totally destroy it because most gold plating is not 14 karat or even 10 karat. Most of it's less than that, so it'll eat it all away. If you think it's plated, you can also just test it right on the piece, and you'll get that green gunky look to it as well.
Okay.
One thing people talk about silver, if you got big silver pieces, if it's not marked and you think it's silver, you can always smell it too. If it smells kind of foul, it's usually a copper plating underneath. The copper is what you're smelling. That's a way to pick up a piece and tell it real quick if it's not marked in any way.
I see some people take a like Dremel tool to the gold to make a little bit of a scratch onto it.
I
You
would
can use that, but you really can use like a pocket knife. Like I said, I use the tip of a box cutter blade if you don't mind scratching. Like he said, if you suspect it's plated and you're not worried about damaging it anyhow, you can use just enough to scrape through that plating, because what you want to do is if there's something under that plating, you want that acid to react with the base metal. So you just want to make sure you scratch deep enough to go down.
Gotcha.
Like I said, there's some great videos out there on it. I mean, I enjoy watching stuff like that. I enjoy learning. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I'm also the nerd that falls asleep watching Antiques Roadshow. And I think it's the most awesome show that ever existed. But my wife's like, "Oh my God, haven't you seen this episode?" I'm like, "But I learned something new again." So I don't know.
Hey, this is interesting. One guy said, I'm sorry, Thrift Daddy. Great thing. Look out for old frat pledge pins. And the reason being is, I totally forgot this. The older ones, there was quite a bit of gold in those.
Yep.
I just want to say, when I first read that, I thought it said old fart pledge pins.
You were thinking of yourself.
Oh, yeah.
No, he's
I was
thinking.
like, what the hell's an old fart?
I'm going to change gears just a little bit on something. I've had an Etsy store up for a little bit here with my computers, which probably wasn't the best thing. I mean, it was for new build. I had a lot of people following it, and here I had an experience I shared with some of the guys in here earlier. I was trying to look at the messages real quick. But anyway, unfortunately, the very first sale that comes through, and then I get a message right after that it was a unauthorized payment method used. And now the guy has been messaging me, wanting to know where his order is and things like that. And it's interesting, but you never hear much talk about Etsy and any kind of not that we want to go down the road of problems, but Etsy, I think, most people don't visualize that platform as having issues like that. And here, the very first sale I make on it winds up having issues. Well, maybe it's because of the size of the dollar amount of what I was selling. I don't know if that's got something to do with it or not. So I don't know if anybody else sells in here on Etsy, if Valerie or Sally do, or anybody else in here, but it'd be interesting to hear if you've had any experiences like that. Because the one thing that I learned about this so far that I'm not real pleased with is I don't like not being able to talk to a live body on the other end. Etsy only wants to communicate through emails, which is not the most comfortable thing for me. And ironically, the money was never transferred into my account, yet in order to cancel the transaction, they wanted me to issue a refund. So I went ahead and listened to them and did that, but it's still, the fees are sitting out there. Now they want me to jump through a couple other hoops, which it's getting to be a real pain. And honestly, for what it is, I'm probably going to shut that store down and just go back to something simpler if I go on that platform at all again. I know my son started an Etsy store, and he's starting to do pretty well with it because he does photographs, prints and stuff like that. So I mean, for that kind of stuff, I think it's fine. And even they're not that cheap. I mean, he just sold 2 prints that were $450 a piece, and so they're not inexpensive by any means. The sale that was there, the combination of both of those still exceeded what I had for sale. But it's not been a comfortable situation just with dealing with an issue. So, has anybody else got any comments on that? And if anybody in the audience also who deals with Etsy would like to kind of chime in here, I'd be glad to hear it.
I sell on Etsy, but mostly crafting supplies and seashells and things like that, and needlepoint and needlework, fabric craft type stuff, needlework and those kinds of deals. And those things are always popular, and they sell well. Actually, you can find needlepoint kits and cross stitch kits and things like that. Those things, you can often find those at garage sales and thrift shops and things like that are in good shape for not much money, and they all sell for 30 or 40, 50 bucks.
Yeah.
Good turnover item.
You got to remember your limitations on Etsy too. It has to be vintage, which means I think it's up to 1997 now. It's got to be earlier than 1997. Yeah, Some of the stuff's kind of hard to prove, but
Are you talking about selling though, Neil?
whenever you sell anything on there, other than if you made it yourself.
Right, and that's what the computers, even though technically, and I asked them about this when I set it up, the parts are pre-manufactured by other people, but I actually do the final assembly and it's sold as my built product, so you are able to do that.
Yeah. I've only had a warning one time trying to sell something that I didn't make myself, and I just reworded what I was selling and moved on down the road.
Yeah,
they don't have. I'm not quite sure what's going on. I have to check my credit card statement too to see if it's been processed on there or not as far as the fees go. But I really didn't see any what I could tell as far as transactions. Because I thought, okay, I just submitted the refund for something that I never received money on. I want to make sure they don't pull that money out against my card or something. So and honestly, this is, even though I'm a fairly seasoned reseller in other things, this is something that's new to me. So we all learn, even when you're seasoned, and that's why a lot of and I'm saying this for the benefit of people who are fairly new to reselling, because we have some time under our belt with different platforms, types of selling. Doesn't mean there isn't always something new to learn. So I'm trying to see if I can draw a little bit off of other people now with this particular situation. Maybe there's something I'm missing here. So.
No, I just found it to be a pretty easy place to sell and return. I had 1 or 2 returns, and it was very uncomplicated and very straightforward. And you do get more money than selling on some of the other avenues for your product, but it's more specialized. It is a specialized area. You just can't throw anything up there and expect it to sell.
I've recently gained new appreciation for Macari.
Yeah.
I just primarily their shipping. I was selling something on. I picked up something at an auction, and I had 200 bulk clamshells that I wanted to just sell in a bulk lot, And so I put them up on Facebook in one of the groups over there, and somebody grabbed them, and I'm checking the shipping, and the shipping's coming out like $18 or something like that to where he was. And he said, how about doing it on Macari? And you can ship it on Macari for $9. I said, really? Okay, let's check it. So I checked the price, and he said, but the thing on the $9 price on Macari, because they just have blocks. When you go to ship something, they have a value. Such and such to such and such. And so many pounds to so many pounds, so many pounds. And this thing was 10 pounds, 2 ounces. And he said, put it in on the 9-pound rate, because they'll sell you a $12 label, and you're good, and it's $9, but they'll charge you for $12, whatever. So I ended up shipping that stuff for $9, which is like half of what the cheapest I could find, and that was priority 2 days.
No, they're shipping.
So, and no fees on Macari currently. So.
And
good place.
Yeah, you get your choice between FedEx and USPS.
Yeah.
Well, there's the other thing too. Now it's interesting I said that because I just refreshed my messages and the message shows up talking about different methods of contacting them, and they say they're instructing me on how to request a phone call from them. When in fact I've requested a phone call from them via email. So now I don't know if there's something different. Has anybody ever talked to Etsy? Physically talked to them?
I don't think there's anybody home.
Yeah.
Hal runs it. So,
No, I'm not anti-Etsy, but I don't think there's. I don't know. I've never heard anybody ever in my life mention having to call like Etsy customer service.
No, they answer your questions, very fast and promptly, and
Well, it took them 2 days from this. But
same as Macari, they don't call. You can't call them either.
Yeah, I haven't had any problem. I had a basic back off on Macari because you had to wait for the guy to rate you before you get paid, but then you wait for 5 days and he doesn't rate you, then they'll just go ahead and pay you anyway.
You just got to tell them to rate you.
If it's there's this long lead time, and I'm thinking I don't like that lead time because I'm used to eBay. I get paid now; it's in my account. But I do Amazon. I get paid every 2 weeks. So what I sell now, I don't get paid for another 2 weeks. So it's like, what are you busting your chops about here?
Right.
Just suck it up and go with it. It's a sale, man. Don't ask a sale.
One that gets paid now, and then the other one kind of surprises you. All of a sudden, you get this big paycheck. It's like, yeah, this is cool. And if you have enough stuff selling, then you're getting paid every week, so that's not so bad.
Yeah, lots of things. I'm starting to explore more markets, you know.
Yep.
I think it's the first sale I made on Facebook groups. I got into a couple of the groups there of, you know, other resellers exchanging inventory and excess stuff. And so because I do get things in bulk occasionally, multiples, you know, because I do most of my sourcing from auctions. And they're online auctions of local guys right around me, and I can go to the warehouse and look at the stuff. Say, yeah, I want to bid on that, you know. And that works pretty well. But so that's where I got those CD cases. I sold those CD cases for $20 plus shipping, and I paid $1 for them. So I can't really bitch about that turnover.
Right.
And he knew I paid $1 for him. He
Wait a
didn't.
minute. Are we allowed to say bitch on Jim's show?
No. Hell no.
Jim's like, no.
Then
I threatened to punch little kids on my channel. So.
I don't think Dana was in here yet at that point when somebody said something about saying a bad word, and yeah, it was. We decided it was Jim's channel, so anything goes really.
Yeah, I got 86 off the morning show because I had the reputation for having a mouth and dropping f-bombs, so I watch myself nowadays. But
It's all good.
So, but Eric, you mentioned your son, is he listening in?
No, he just happened over here. He was at the top of the steps when he heard me say
Oh, I got you. He's like my kids. Like they can't. You call his name and nobody will. Yeah, but you say something and they're like, "What?"
Yeah, he just happened to hear me drop the bad word, and for him, because of how he
depends on how you use it. I raise and show dogs. We have an AKC bitch, a champion bitch, double grand champion bitch.
But being autistic, they process things differently, they hear things differently, and so for him, it's a instantaneous bad word. So it doesn't matter. I mean, he'll say it to anybody. We're walking down the street, somebody says a bad word, he will yell at them and ask for them to say they're sorry. So it can be a challenge sometimes.
My brother-in-law's, and I know you and I have talked about it. My brother-in-law has a son, but he has a lot of things other than autism, and he's very low. The opposite of your son. He's very low functioning. Super kid, but you know, it's about 16 years old. He's on about a 5-year-old level, and he doesn't realize what words are when he says them. And he goes to special needs class at the local high school, and he goes with a girl who has Tourette's. So she teaches him all kinds of things, and then he comes home, and it's literally like sitting there with a grown child, a teenager that's you know on a very low functioning level, and you'll be sitting there eating dinner, and he'll just spout up, and it's one of those things where you know, the first time it ever happened, he's like, it's okay to laugh. It's because you're not going to be able to not laugh.
Right.
When he'll turn to you and look, and you'll be eating dinner, and he'll go, hey, you, and you're like, okay, buddy. And I was like, he's such a sweet kid, and he doesn't know what he's saying. He just picked that up from another kid at school, but it's just his timing on it. I think sometimes that his mind knows what he's saying when he's saying it because he knows he's going to get a reaction. So
yeah, most people don't realize that one of the things that kids with autism or anything are known for is their listening ability. They listen to everything. They hear everything, and it's how they process things. It's one of the problems with autism is the fact that they're in sensory overload 99% of the time, and so you're sitting here talking, and you got 4 other people here talking. They're hearing every single conversation and every other word, so it can be difficult at times. So.
You have to really watch what you say. Yeah, Gage will do that. He'll be sitting in his chair and watching TV or whatever, and we'll be having an adult conversation in the other room, and he'll hear exactly what you said. You won't have heard a peep from him for 15, 20 minutes, and all of a sudden he'll just bust out with something, and you're like, and David's like, he was listening the whole entire time.
Well, my son is a huge YouTube fan, and if anybody clicks on my name and goes to YouTube, you're going to see my son's videos, and they're usually pretty awful and pretty interesting because he loves certain video games, and he likes to make his own videos, and I don't care. So yeah, so he loves YouTube.
Yeah, I've got a buddy David who was actually on my last video. I drive him to work and pick him up every day. He's got autism. He's, I think, 28 or 30, somewhere in there. And yeah, he wants to have his own YouTube channel so bad. And he has a channel, but it's just of like his dog and stuff. And I'm like, David, you should get on there and talk. And when I first met him, the way I was explained, he was brought up like not to have opinions, not to talk, just shush, David, and like I'm like, no, talk, have an opinion, tell me about it, you know. So now he's like, he wants to talk about Trump and Hillary and the Mets and the way, like he's just like he doesn't shut up now, so, which is great.
My son is 12 years old right now, be 13 a little bit later on, and you ask him who he wants me to vote for, and he's a Donald Trump fan. We don't talk politics in the house. We don't talk. He didn't learn politics at school, but for some reason he's probably just from watching YouTube channels, things like that. He's become a Trump fan, and you ask him why, and he says because he's funny.
Well,
I can't argue with that. So I mean, that's what it works.
That's one of the reasons why we keep certain topics out of this show too.
Yeah,
because they're not so funny.
It's I mean, he literally wants to make a living off of YouTube. That's his goal in life, is to be a YouTuber and get paid for it.
That is.
And so to me, that's why I let him have free access to my channel. He can put whatever he wants, and I keep telling him, so just practice, buddy, keep practicing. But
yeah.
It can be difficult doing this type of work that we do. It can be difficult with somebody who has special needs. I can't go to a sit down at an auction and sit down for 8, 10, 12 hours. He just won't sit still for that long. So, and because the way my living situation is, it's me, my daughter lives with me, but she works, and I don't expect her to watch my child, and then just me and him basically. So, you learn to deal with it. Everybody's got their challenges to deal with in this type of work. So.
And that's a big thing too. I was talking about that in a group the other day, and I'll lower my voice because I can hear myself now. I was talking about that with somebody the other day, and it's you never know. You never know. We automatically assume. You never know what somebody's reselling situation is. It's easy for me to say, oh, well, don't go to Goodwill, but somebody may live in a town that's all they have is Goodwill. Yep. They may live in an area that doesn't have good yard sales. I think the whole conversation came up with talking about really just not knowing. Don't assume because your buyer says they didn't get the item that their mailbox is just like your mailbox. And then I posted something in the Alabama Pickers group about it and brought a little more talk. But don't assume that everybody out there is a scammer. Don't assume that everybody out there, every buyer, every seller, has it exactly the same, because everybody's situation is. I'm fortunate enough to live in a small metropolitan area. I wouldn't call it metropolitan, but I forget that there's people that live in Idaho, or there's people that live in Iowa or Utah or whatever, and they may only have 2 thrift stores and no yard sales around them. So their situation is going to be totally different. They're going to have to maybe source once a week and drive 3 hours to do it. They don't have everything at their fingertips. So.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky. I live in a fairly metro area, and I have tons of places to source. I'm just limited by my availability time and things like that. In the school time and everything like that, I shop during the day. I can go out and I can hit thrift stores, I can hit junk stores, whatever I need to hit. But school's out right now, and so I'm really just shopping from home. So. That's probably a good way to, a lot of people talk about online, arbitrage, shopping the eBay for the mistakes and buying and then flipping on eBay. And I know some people were shopping on Walmart.com, looking at the local clearances and seeing what they could find. I haven't gotten down into that part of it at this point. I'm actually starting to think about selling on Amazon, so that'll be interesting. Well, I bought an entire church's library out. So I have all the church leadership books and all that stuff. And I scanned a few of them, and they look like they're pretty decent prices. It's just I have an Amazon seller account. I just haven't really done anything with it. So, I've got them sitting in my garage, but I literally have about 8 totes of books out there that should bring decent money. So I haven't gone through them all, but just ordered my USB scanner, so we'll see.
Books are one of the best way to start, man.
Well, nowadays, since I haven't sold on there, it's one of the few areas you can actually get into that you don't have to worry about being restricted out of. There's so many different categories that are restricted. So
we have a question.
Try to send in books that are too high a ranking. They'll bitch at you when you try to do it.
Right. No, they'll just make you pay for it if it doesn't sell.
Well, they just warn you, and you have to check a box and say, "Yeah, I know." I know it's got a ranking of 8 million, but send it in anyway.
That's not
it's just saying, Jay. I apologize if I'm chopping this up. Is it Jayan?
It's
PA?
just JNPA.
Okay. Anyone recommend a good app finding stuff on Craigslist? I know Craigslist themselves has an app, and I do remember there was supposed to be some kind of an app out a while back that I thought I remembered looking at that was supposed to kind of search the entire Craigslist across the country. I cannot remember what it was. I do kind of vaguely remember it not being necessarily the best working thing at the time. At least I don't have a good memory of it. So if anybody is aware of that, maybe speak up or let us know. So, but go ahead.
Tristan was going to look something up on Craigslist the other day. She's trying to find a bird cage, and I was like, just get on Craigslist. She's like, I don't have that app on my phone. I was like, she's like, which one is it? And I was like, well, there's 50 of them, and just pick the purple one. Their app personally sucks. It just amazes me that Craigslist has never, and I know they do in some cities, they charge for job postings and they charge for certain things in some areas. But I've never, the fact that they've never figured out a way to monetize that website and charge for things because people use it. I would pay for a decent app if they would put one out, where you could search things better and do stuff like that. I would even pay to list stuff on there. I mean, make it 99 cents a listing. I mean, who wouldn't? Is there anybody in this panel of 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 people that if Craigslist suddenly started charging 99 cents per item you list on there, is there anybody that would quit listing altogether?
I don't list on there now.
But maybe they give you actually a few perks with it as well. You know what I mean?
Honestly, it probably.
The perks is that it's a cash money deal. Nobody knows nothing.
I think it would help the website out.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they could afford then to maybe create some more categories, do it a little better, have people moderate it a little better, and not have
there is
every thrift store in this town wants to advertise under yard sales, and it's like, really, you do that every week, all day, every day.
Right.
You're not a yard sale, you're a thrift store.
Yeah, I think there's an API for Craigslist because I know one of the yard sale apps uses Craigslist to source as one of the sources for its listings.
So they're pulling the data somehow.
Yeah, so there's an API for it somehow. Yeah.
Yeah,
There is.
I just did a quick search. Search Tempest.
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one I've used.
One
Tempest.
Craig's is another one, which is kind of interesting. It searches a little differently. Those are the first two I found. So there's a few of them out there. I just kind of remember there's another one that's searchcraigslist.org. So I don't know which one would be better than others. So apparently there's some means out there. Now whether these can be used all as apps, I don't know that for sure. I guess it's just a matter of checking. Like I said, Craigslist themselves has an actual app you can load. But if you wanted something, and I don't know if it could do a national search if you wanted to all at once, or if it just searches your demographic.
It's like any other search engine, though. It's garbage in, garbage out. You gotta be really specific at what you're looking for, and it's one of those things. I mean, if you're looking for, American Girl dolls, it's pretty easy to find stuff. But if you're just kind of, when I search Craigslist for things, I search for lots. I'm looking for wholesale lot, or I'm looking for store closing. Things like that. I'm not trying to buy the individual pieces off of Craigslist.
Right.
I want quantity at that point.
And that's a good point because most people are usually searching for something very specific. Where if you're looking to do something as a reseller, that's probably good. Like me, a lot of times, I always watch the wanted postings too, because a lot of times that's a good way of selling your stuff. If somebody is looking for something specific that you may have in your inventory, you'd be surprised how many things you could find.
Right.
Yeah, I buy and sell cars on Craigslist all the time, but sometimes if I get lucky, you find a good deal, you can flip it over to eBay even. You never know. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, our Craigslist here is absolutely dead. I've mentioned that a couple times. A lot of people are getting robbed. Either, somebody's saying that they're selling an iPhone, so somebody's bringing $600 cash, and they're just mugging them for that money, or vice versa. They're stealing product. So maybe putting in that small listing fee would kind of eliminate some of that, at least. I would think.
Well, I mean, scammers are going to be scammers whether you pay for a listing or not. It's just what it boils down to is a lot of the, I think what you're maybe describing would be the non-legitimate ads out there too.
Right.
But the reality of it is even those scammers, matter of fact, one of the biggest scams out there on Craigslist right now has to do with real estate. There's properties that are being sold on the MLS, and yet you have these scammers out there that are listing them as rental properties. And what's bizarre about it is they've even somehow, some way gained access to some of these properties. They've gotten people into leases, they've collected money, and it's just outrageous, some of the things that are going on. And I pardon the phrase, but I think there's still a lot, with all the things in this world and all the warnings, there's still a lot of gullible people out there too that just fall for this stuff, and I have no clue why.
But there are, like with the scams you're talking about, they'll list a property if they stole the pictures off MLS, and they'll go, okay, well, but I'm out of the state or out of the country, so send me Western Union send me the money for $2,500 down payment, and you can have this house that should rent for $1,500 for an incredible deal of $700. I think there's a certain point of people that are going to be either extremely gullible, I hate to use the word stupid, or are going to be so greedy, maybe, that plays a factor into where our common sense receptors kind of quit working. I mean,
there's largely in their soul, or they wouldn't be falling for it.
I mean, my father-in-law my wife's in the other room, but my father-in-law about 5 years ago, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, got scammed out of some Alabama championship tickets because he got on Craigslist and somebody was advertising them, and their story was that they went to the UK and took them on vacation and forgot and took their ticket. I'm like, who the hell carries Alabama football tickets with him and goes on vacation to the UK? And he Western Union the money, and he lost the money on it. And I felt really bad because this guy's like Mensa smart, but I was like, how did you possibly fall? I mean, seriously. Like, next time you buy something online, please call me. Like, seriously, when it sounds too good to be true, please call me. And he kind of does now, but, he Western Union $1,500 to somebody in the UK that supposedly had Alabama championship football tickets. I mean, and I think the average person...
Well, that's certainly the first place I'd look.
I mean...
But wait a minute. See, the other thing too, Dusty, I don't always agree with. They're not always that obvious. They're not always talking Western Union and a lot of things. Because my wife as a realtor is experiencing, a lot of them are using stateside either PO boxes. They're with today's world of Google Voice, phone numbers and things like that, or numbers that aren't traceable. They can make it seem so legitimate that you don't recognize it. But the other side of the coin on the surface, because there's so many, and I hate to say it, the cat out of the bag kind of scenario with the MLS nowadays. It used to be that the control was all in the realtor's hands, and now it's not anymore because the cat has been let out of the bag with all these MLS feeds, with a lot of these other larger platforms that are out there, and people think that that's the go-to have all information, when in fact it's just filtered down, regurgitated, old, delayed information many times, but they could steal that information from so many different places, and they don't even know the originating source a lot of times. And that's what's making it a little more challenging. But that being said, you still have to use a little bit of common sense. If a deal sounds too awesome to be true, it's the old adage. There's a lot of truth to it. I'm not saying there aren't those exceptions to the rule, where there are some exceptional deals. It could be a reseller that just wants to blast out their inventory for whatever reason, or but it's just common sense. So.
All right, let's get to another question here. Cheryl Ann said Michael wants to know wants info on restricted and ungating on Amazon. So I guess he's looking to start on Amazon, and I've been watching the side chat there, and he's wanting some information on getting ungated, what categories you can sell in to start, that kind of stuff. So
a lot of info. I've been selling on Amazon almost 2 years now, FBA, and I'm ungated in a bunch of different categories. And it's really, that's a moving target. I mean, some things are slam dunk, some things are just automatic, some things that should be stupid automatic take a dozen tries. It's really random. Depends a lot on what agents you talk to when you send it in, and if they're having a good day or not. It's the old tech support thing. If you don't like the answer, hang up and call back and find somebody that will give you the answer you want to hear. Then go with that.
And I totally agree with every single bit of that. But I want to ask you, when on the categories, Dana, because you said you've been at when on the ones you did get ungated, did you get ungated closer to 2 years ago or closer to recently?
I've been ungated in groceries and gourmet foods, which is the one I really was working for, and made an effort to get ungated in really hard.
How long ago was that?
It's probably been about a year.
I think it's a lot. And I don't know if you've seen that, but from what I've seen, they're really cracking down. What worked before with like grocery store receipts, or isn't really working anymore.
Yeah.
Walmart receipt with any of the categories, not just grocery, but grocery, health and beauty, some of those.
I'm incorporated, and I just opened an account at a wholesale grocer that services primarily is a wholesale grocery warehouse that services primarily the bodegas and the mom and pop stores. The neighborhood here, the Spanish style bodega, local markets and carniceria and things like that.
Michael Cole, one of the things
I go in there with wholesale.
Michael Cole's asking a lot of questions specifically about ungating, which is not my strong suit. But I want to tell you, Michael, anytime that you want to reach out during the week, you don't have to wait for the shows here. You can reach out to any one of us, either via a channel, Facebook, whatever. There are occasions we do, as this panel is a group of us, the core group, that we do hangouts every day of the week. But there are times that we have people that want to come in and just talk and have some questions and that sorts of thing. And you're welcome to just reach out to us anytime you need to, even in that fashion. If it's because typing is always kind of a pain. You can never convey what you really want to say sometimes, that kind of thing, and it's better to do it face to face. So even if you wanted to do a hangout, there you go. I tend to talk with my hands, so if you tie my hands behind my back, I won't be able to speak very much longer, and that's probably a good thing. But anyway, seriously, if you ever just wanted to talk face to face, things like that, you could reach out and we could set up a specific hangout time, that kind of thing, and maybe get some of the things specifically answered that you have there. That sort of thing. That could be for anybody. Obviously we can't do it every day of the week with everybody because they're up in business. But there are.
You can do it right inside Facebook now too.
One of the things I always hear is these, I guess you could call it services that will get you ungated for couple of $300.
A lot of them aren't even touching a lot of those categories anymore. Because they just know there's really no way, unless they're using fake invoice, and I don't know if they are, but unless they're doing whatever. There's before it used to be they could just go. I helped somebody get ungated in grocery. It was a year and a half ago, and she goes, "How do I do it?" And I reached up in my receipt box and took 3 Kroger's receipts and a Walmart receipt, and took pictures of them with a digital camera because I don't have a scanner, and sent them to her and said, "Send these in." First 2 worked. The third one they kicked back. She sent the 4th one in. They accepted that as the 3rd one. She got ungated. That was the wild, wild west days. They even showed my purchase for a 12-pack of beer. And they really, honestly did not care. And she lives in Florida, and it showed Huntsville, Alabama. That was how crazy easy it was.
Yeah, they were so lax. One of the things, I got ungated in clothing and accessories with nothing. I didn't send up anything. They basically said, "What are you going to sell? These. What brand? Levi's." Okay, fine, good. Here you go. You're ungated.
Yeah, I tried. It didn't work for me to get ungated in clothing because I have a quantity of brand new stuff, and I was like, if I can sell these in clothing, it'd be great. And submitted the application, and they're like, "Well, you have to be an authorized retailer of that clothing line now." And I'm like, okay.
It's funny. I didn't even ask to be ungated in clothing, and they just gave it to me. So.
Yeah.
Some people got grandfathered. There was a couple categories like health and beauty, and I always combine the two: beauty and health and personal care. Those I got grandfathered in. Grocery, I can't remember, but there were some that were joke, like automotive. All they required for automotive was a link to your website, and they wanted a picture that was like full 1080p with the proper background, whatever. And I had a set of jumper cables. Then another reseller had given me the picture that was on this proper background. He said, "Here, take it." And I put it on my Alabama Pickers domain, which I think is probably since expired. But I put it on there, and I literally, when people say, "How do I get ungated in automotive?" I'd be like, "Here's a link. Use that picture when you need it." And I don't know how many people got ungated doing that. for free.
Hang on.
I
I'm
didn't
gonna
charge
interrupt
anything
you a
for it. I just
second.
thought it was cool to help other
Dusty,
people. But
hang on a second. I'm going to address something. Hey, Scott, I just want to let you know the theme of the show, the template of this whole show, how it goes, is basically whoever anybody wants to talk to, and if it favors one topic or another, that's just because that's the way the show goes. We do know that some people favor Amazon over eBay. We're not doing anything intentionally. The majority of us do sell on eBay here. Some do sell on both platforms or other multiple platforms, but it's just however the conversation goes. So it's not a matter of hand picking. We don't have topics here. It's basically a fluid type platform, and it's whatever goes. So if there's things you want to talk about, let's have at it and let's talk about them. You know, if you got something specific that's concerning you versus one being better over others, because that's not the case. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I felt that needed to be talked about.
But it's, you know, and there's a lot of talk about different platforms. They're totally, and I know Michael Cole's got a lot of questions. Like we said, I think Michael actually is in like the Alabama Pickers group. I'm trying to think of a group that we're all pretty much in. That's totally not tooting my own group, but there's a lot of other reseller groups out there. But feel free to ask more specific questions in there as well. In addition to like joining after shows, joining, I'll be glad to answer them. You know, the thing is with Amazon, I mean, there's just not. Amazon's a really, it can be a very intimidating, scary beast. And I see a lot of people, especially with all the rule changes, the gating, I mean, I was reading the forums this week, and there were a couple of people that literally got suspended because they didn't realize they were listing a gated item on an existing ASIN that was categorized in everything else, and then somebody put in for a product merge and had that merged back to the correct category. And I saw 2 different people this week that got suspended because suddenly their health and beauty item that they thought they were allowed to sell and they'd been selling forever got put back in the proper category where it should have been all to begin with. And Amazon goes, "Well, you're not allowed to do that.
Right.
You don't belong here."
How many times we see misinformation been given out? And let's face it, we're all human too, and not saying that we've never made a mistake, but there's a lot of presentations out there via video, and we were talking about it earlier. I won't go into specifics because I don't want to sound like we're targeting somebody, but you know, there are specifics to how packaging should be, especially with new items and things like that. And if you're wavering from that, and maybe it wasn't caught the first time, that doesn't mean it won't be caught the next time around, and then you could very well lose your account. You know, so, and again, I'm not on Amazon right now because I've chosen not to, because I'm trying to basically, I've just reopened my store at the beginning of the year. I had it back in the 90s, and things have changed, and I believe in perfecting one thing at a time and doing it well. And then I do sell on some other platforms too. So, you know, again, just repeating, you know, we're glad to have opinions. We're not taking anything offensively. I just want people to realize that, you know, the show flows in any direction it goes, and it's basically geared by. It's not just what we talk about. We feed off of the audience. So if there's something that you want to talk about specifics, you know, have at it, bring them up. We're glad to go down that road, and we'll answer whatever we can. So
if you want to learn the best way to sell on Amazon, and I know I sound like I'm some big singing the praises of the Amazon seller forums, but I'm going to tell you it's the one place where you will actually get Amazon to weigh in through their moderators. You're not going to see that on Facebook groups. You're not going to get that. You know, Amazon doesn't normally weigh in on anything. If you call seller performance or seller customer service, you're going to get 15 different answers to 15 different things from somebody that's outsourced. Amazon seller forums, you will occasionally get a moderator that will weigh in. There's people in there that have been doing it for years. If you want to learn how to do Amazon without getting kicked off, go read the seller forums and read every thread you can find on suspension and learn what not to do. Because there is stuff that I still, to this day, after doing it for several years, I go, wow, didn't know you couldn't do that. And, I mean, you will learn so much about the pitfalls to avoid. So it's almost kind of a backwards thing. Rather than watching YouTube videos or Facebook groups or whatever social media to learn how to do it, go learn what not to do. And in the process, you'll learn a lot of how to do it as well. But protect yourself first and foremost, because Amazon just doesn't play. You can be as successful as you want on eBay, but if you carry over eBay, and I jokingly call it eBay mentality, because I think we all sell on eBay, I do, but if you carry over some of the same practices you have from eBay, of, oh, the box is a little damaged, it's still brand new, I mean, you're going to just end up straight off of Amazon. You're going to get kicked off so fast, your head's going to spin, and then you're not even going to know, like, what did I do? Because they're not going to tell you what you did. They're not going to tell you. They're just going to suspend you until you had violated, and they're not going to tell you what you did, and they're not going to answer you when you ask.
Where do you find the forums?
The what?
Where do you find the Amazon seller forums?
If you go to Amazon Seller, your main Seller Central page, mine is, you can rearrange all those widgets on your main Seller Central page. Mine happens to be in the bottom left, but somewhere on your main Seller Central page it's going to say Seller Forums. The best place to start is probably the general selling questions. I think that's kind of where everybody goes because it appears, I'm looking at it now, appears first and foremost. You're going to learn a lot from those forums.
Also, study the condition guidelines as well, because that's probably the number one reason why people get suspended or banned. They're really clear on their guidelines, and if you just follow them, you should be fine. Michael, you did say that you're worried about sending in restricted items to FBA, and that's not possible. So if you look up an item to sell and you're restricted in it, Amazon will not allow you to create your listing for that item. So,
which is also a benefit when you're scanning items because it will tell you, hey, this is not eligible for you to send it to FBA.
Yeah, and it'll be a big red flag. You'll see it. It's not.
So it's actually quite, the app is awesome. I gotta give them credit. The app is very, very good because it really just if you can sell it, send it in, and then of course what it's worth and where everything's ranked and everything like that. Yeah. It's a much better app than eBay's is actually.
And I will tell you there's. Oh, sorry.
We always talk about research, and if there's any platform you should really do your research on is Amazon because it is so specific. Not that you don't on eBay, and not that eBay is some slouch either, because they're starting to get a little bit tougher on some things too. But if I've learned anything just by being around other resellers, is Amazon is a whole different animal, and it is so tight. You got to be super careful.
Right.
It's and I will tell you, if you do the Amazon seller forums, I don't know if anybody's ever been in the eBay seller forums, but that used to be a really tough crowd. It's kind of like the same thing, but like with any business, you have to have thick skin. If you go in there and ask a question and people rip you a new a-hole or whatever, don't take it personally. That's just part of the internet. I mean, it's like any forum. If you get on Reddit, you're going to get the same thing or whatever else. Just take it with a grain of salt and laugh about it and type back, haha, didn't mean to, sorry, was just asking a question, whatever, and then go on and continue to read. Or don't post a question and just read and learn, and then you won't get ripped a new one because you didn't post anything. But don't let that scare you. I mean, don't let that scare you off either. It's just, that's kind of the day and age we live in. People, I think Facebook's a little different because people have to put a real name and a real face out there. But forums, even back to the old days of, I know several of us in here remember the old days of BBSs and all that. You hid behind our Prodigy handles. How about that one? We hid behind that. You hid behind a number or a name, and people can be a little catty when they're not forced to expose themselves. But it's it's just all part of. If you've got thick enough skin to make it through any forum, then you've probably got thick enough skin to handle the biggest jerk customer you ever had to handle e-commerce.
Also, you gotta remember too, Amazon has a lot of importers and exporters. These are guys that are like professional business guys, not just mom and dads and everyday part-timers that you see on eBay. So there's some heavy-duty business guys floating around Amazon too, more so than probably you're seeing eBay.
Well, it's like Scott just mentioned too, which is a very true comment. It's that certain categories on Amazon are higher returns than they are. More trouble and better sold on eBay, i.e. used electronics. Well, there's that truth to anything, and it still comes back to the part of the research is learning what is good to sell, what type of return rate are you going to get on that item, and then that's one thing that many people don't think about is, the return rate. If you're going to have possible returns. I mean, I gave an example a while back, I think a couple shows back, talking about these boots that I had, or my wife had picked up. They were Michael Kors boots. They were $240 or $50, whatever they were. She picked them up on sale closeout for $69. They were beautiful boots. They had very high positive feedback, but there was one thing on there that was enough to make me turn around and say, hey, let's get you back to the store and forget about it because I didn't want to return. Was the common complaint about them was they were tight around the ankles. They were so fitted. And she bought them for my daughters to try, and that's exactly what they said. So to me, it wasn't worth the risk. Even though there was a potential high return rate there on that item, just and I got rid of them. So you have to kind of use that way too for a little bit of your decision on what you sell.
Well, that was when we went up to visit Danica in Tennessee a month or so ago, and I showed part of that in a little video. And we found this Fry boot outlet, and it was like Fry boots, $149.99 a pair, buy one get one free, and I'm like, oh hell, $75 a pair for brand new Frys. And I had just bought myself a pair of Fry boots a couple months before, so I knew what they ran. I was like, this is awesome. But I also knew from having to order 3 different pairs off of Amazon, there's certain styles of Fry boots that you don't want to sell because they run exactly a size and a half too small or too big. They're way, way, way off. And so I avoided those and went with the ones that I knew were more true to fit. Apparently it has something to do with which country they're made in with Fry or something. People don't know how to measure in certain countries or something. But, you avoided that. Was it tempting to still pick up the other ones, knowing I could buy them for $75 a pair and sell them for $200 a pair? Yeah. But I also knew the return factor on it. I was like, okay, it's not worth the risk. Scott mentioned used electronics. I quit selling used electronics. And I mentioned that and tried to kind of say something to a lot of resellers and stuff. Guys, be careful, because I saw a couple of years ago, I started seeing everybody going, oh, look at the, apparently I'm in a group message for Father's Day. Sorry, hang on one second. So, I saw everybody going, oh, send in your used iPods and send in your used Game Boy. And I'm not Game Boys, but, your used Walkmans, and look what they're bringing. And everybody wanted to send a VHS player into FBA and all that. And I think, and I'm not saying that those still aren't good items, but I think that, if you ask Scott, I quit doing used electronics because the return rate was just higher than what I was comfortable with. And it's just not worth the trouble. Throw that crap on eBay where you're not going to get as high of a return rate. Why is the return rate higher on Amazon? Ease of returns. People having one-click shipping and buying things that they have buyer's remorse about, maybe, whereas it's more of a step process on eBay versus Amazon. I mean, I don't know the reason, but I literally just said, you know what, it is not worth. I remember the card scanners, the business card scanners, and everybody was selling the little machines where you put your business card in, it scans it in and whatever, and everybody was going on and on. Oh my God, they're bringing $350 on Amazon. Well, everybody that I knew just about that sold one had it returned, because what they didn't realize is they were only backwards compatible with like DOS 3.1, and the company wouldn't honor it anymore. So all these people that were buying them were getting them and going, I can't get it to work with Windows 7, and the company's telling me to screw off when I ask them for an updated driver. And then that bubble kind of quickly faded. So it's kind of one of those, don't be, and I'm not going to call it greed, but when you see something that's almost too good to be true as a reseller, especially when it comes to something that just doesn't make sense for why it would sell for that much, you almost have to be really, really, really careful and do a little research and be a little hesitant. Mm-hmm. And I guess with me, for stuff that I feel like you need to be hesitant, eBay is more the marketplace for that stuff rather than Amazon.
Right.
I'm not sure if Greg, and apologies for pronouncing it wrong, Metelka, if that's a question or not. It almost looked more like a statement than a question to me. He said if it has a cord, don't sell it. I don't know that I just wrote to him, I said I don't know that that's a fair statement, because it comes down to doing proper testing, or whether it's new, whether it's used, that kind of thing. So if it's a question, then it's what I just said is more the answer. If it's a statement, I don't necessarily agree with that.
I kind of I kind of do in a. I mean, that's kind of, when it comes to Amazon, I kind of like that statement. I'm not saying, I said something the other day. I won't sell modems anymore. Modems or routers, used or new, because 9 people out of 10 don't have a freaking clue how to hook them up, so they're going to return them as defective. Because they don't know how to do it, and they call Linksys, and they get, I don't know, China or wherever, and Linksys isn't going to help them. They're going to blame it on their cable provider or whatever. I mean, Joe, you're a computer guy. Do you find that, I don't know if you sell a lot of that type of equipment, but do you agree that, is that an item that you'd want to necessarily, or that you have successfully sold a lot of?
I haven't really sold that many of them. It's not something, you know, that actually has a good return rate for the most part, because it's like any electronic. It could be basically a throwaway device. It depends on the desirability of it. But that being said, one of the things I try to do is no different than when I'm selling the computers. Is, you know, one breath, you don't want to get, you know, I think the rule of thumb is like 800 characters, but you don't want to get too wordy, but yet you want to give as much information as possible in the sense that they can make an educated decision. Like for me, and not to keep coming back to this handicap equipment that I had sold, one of the things I said on there, because I actually put an image, which was easier than typing in bullet points and not flooding eBay's algorithm. I actually put an image in there of the spec sheet from the manual. It was page 24 or 25. I remember the page number. And that gave all the particulars of the size, the fit, the weight, the dimensions, all that stuff. And I specifically put in nice big letters, please be sure you look at the detail information to make sure this is going to fit and work for you before even attempting to purchase it. And it worked out. And I think if you have an item like that, you know, maybe it's just putting proper information in there to guide somebody and say, hey, you know, you may want to check into this particular manufacturer or detail or whatever to make sure that you'll know how to properly set it up for yourself. I mean, it's unfortunate that it seems like you're I don't want to say talking down to people, but you know, you have to kind of assume that maybe the education level isn't there. It doesn't mean that people, and pardon the phrase, are stupid. It just means that people may not be aware. They might be, you know, electronically
challenged.
What's the word I'm looking for?
My mom.
What's that?
I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, I thought I was muted. My bad.
Well, not every. I mean, it's no different than not everybody can work on a car. Not everybody can work on a computer.
You have to find your way to Jim Bennett's channel. I love you.
Yeah. Dusty at Alabama Pickers.
She might know what my channel is, but I don't think she probably follows any reselling.
Everybody has their strong and weak suits, and you know, so you have to kind of almost treat it on some level that you're educating people a little bit within your listing. That's all, to help them make that educated decision. And maybe it boils down to just simply saying, hey, please do not hesitate to ask a question before purchasing if you're unsure if this will work for you. And if you can help them and answer, fine. Say, if I'm not sure. So that's also another way of, I think, eliminating possible returns or possible headaches or whatever, is trying to get the information out there and work together and come to a conclusion before it's even done, and maybe eliminate the return that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Parrot Head Picker just said, I think people look at Amazon as a store and eBay as more like buying from a buddy or individual. So it's easier to return to the store than getting your friend to take it back. I think there's a lot less one-on-one on eBay where you can message the seller and the buyer. And yes, you can do that on Amazon, but 9 out of 10 buyers don't even know where to find that button in the Amazon system because it's a little more complicated. But that's actually a great point. I mean, any thoughts on that? I think it's because of the lack of personalization. Maybe that it's easier for people to just click a button and return it on Amazon.
Jordan, you got a comment on that. What do you think?
You know what?
You know what?
Oh, listen to who's saying you know what.
Sorry, can you replay what you just said? I heard it.
I want to interject one thing because I didn't see the whole side chat here, but I want to make one caveat to what I just said. Being that I'm not an Amazon seller, and I don't know if that's what part of the chat was that was going on, I don't know if that, what I'm explaining, will certainly apply. I have seen some notes in Amazon, things that I've looked at, but there may be limitations on what you can say or not say on there as well, too. So I don't want to be giving any misinformation if that's the case. And if there's anybody that wants to comment about that, go right ahead.
Yeah, what do you think the difference between returns on eBay versus Amazon?
Yeah, you know what? With Amazon, basically just if you get a return, don't even worry about it because there's almost nothing you can do. I mean, yes, there are some cases that you can fight it if someone tried to really get one over on you, but rule of thumb, I mean, build it into your business in Amazon because they're going to happen.
Have the push you there for the returns, what you're saying.
Well, and I think that's where that Amazon is maybe more for the professional seller, and that doesn't mean that the people watching aren't professional, whatever. But build your business up maybe with eBay until where you're at a point, or maybe you're starting off with a lot of money, and in that case you're okay. But exactly like Jordan said, where you have to build it into your business model. Walmart, your local grocery store down the street, your local 7-Eleven. Do they try to stop shoplifters? Yes, they do. But at the end of the day, or people that cheat them, or people that scam them, or people that return stuff that they've actually put their old one back in the box, at the end of the day, they've built all that into their business model. They're not going to spend an exorbitant amount of human resources on chasing down the person that did that. And I think you have to really, with Amazon, treat it, or I mean, really, with either website, with Amazon, you really have to treat it kind of the same way. You have to wait till your business is to that point, like Jordan said, where you get to where, okay, I'm selling this much on Amazon, a $30.
Dusty just froze.
There you go. Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, you froze for a second, Dusty, right when you said $30. So I don't know what else you said.
You have to get to the point where you have to get your business to where you are built up enough and comfortable enough with your sales and with your income and whatever, where you're literally not living. I think we all start out living paycheck to paycheck reselling online, but you have to get to a point where maybe I'm using as a for instance a $30 return once a week on Amazon is not a big deal. You just have it returned back to you. You see if it's still sellable, and if it is, you send it back in. Because you're going to get more returns on Amazon than you are on eBay typically.
So, who made $10,000 this week on Disney tapes, VHS tapes?
I did.
Was it everybody?
I didn't want to admit it, but yeah.
I thought OG made it. I thought that was a done deal there. But, what talk about
That stuff happens all the time.
I'm saving mine. I think those are an appreciating asset. I think those are going to keep going up. So
now you can only do that on eBay, I guess. Amazon, you only make $9.99 or something. But what was that whole deal about? Why were people freaking about this?
Just bad information, and somebody misunderstood something, and they saw some black diamond tapes listed for outrageous money, and the sales, and who knows the backstory on why it was there, but all of a sudden that set the market.
But you know what the funniest thing about that whole entire thing was? The easiest way, and it just amazes me, resellers need to use Google. You just got to learn to use Google. You can't believe everything on Facebook, or even if you're researching an item on eBay or Amazon. I went straight, when I saw that pop up, I put Disney Black Diamond Snopes into Google, and boom, it brought up the whole entire story, explained all the backstory. I was like, oh. And that's why when somebody asked about a show or two, I could actually be knowledgeable on it, because I had already done my research on it, because I went and read Snopes. It's the same thing I deal with my father-in-law that forwards me these emails about don't reach underneath the gas pump handle because you're gonna have razor blades cut your fingers off and stuff. And I'm like, and every time he sends me one of those, I reply back with a link to Snopes. And I'm like, there you go. And then I never hear back from him again.
Numerous times that I've been at my grandparents' house, my grandma says, "Oh, Jordan, should I click this button that I won a free cruise, or I'm the millionth visitor? Do you think I really won 20 grand? No, do not click that."
Joe and I were talking about that the other day, and it's not just with like grandparents or father-in-laws or whatever, but I think people that are newer to the age and generation of computers tend to fall for that stuff. And Joe and I were talking about, I was like, my father-in-law, when he gets a new computer, I'm like, let me set it up for you. And I hook up McAfee, every single virus protection that comes free with it, because I know he's going to click on every single thing that pops up. And I'm like, and then 6 months from now, he's going to call me and be like, my computer's shut down and won't do anything. And I'll go in there and start cleaning it off, and it'll just be full of viruses. And I'm like, oh, my Lord. What'd you click on? I didn't click on anything.
Well, when I saw one this week, it was kind of interesting. It was Facebook, actually. And Facebook had an ad, oh, you can make all this money working from your house for Facebook. Facebook is hiring millions of people across the country paying ridiculous. Joe Smith from Podunk said he made $16,000 last month, just sitting at his home doing Facebook. So I did exactly what Dusty said. I said, hey, if it's true, figure it out. Went online to Google, and of course, scam. But yet, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people who just go, okay. And of course, they want you to pay $47.95, down from $197. They gave you a deal.
97 is a sweet
bargain
to join, and you get 80 books and some Kindle deals and everything else. But this happens every single day, and I'm hearing more and more and more of it. So you got to really just use your common sense.
Hey, if there was a program that cost $1,000 to make 16 grand a month on Facebook, I'd be the first one to sign up.
I'll take 10 of them. But and don't even go to Google and put in what you're looking for and put the word Snopes. Put the words scam. I mean, that's a common thing that I search with. Put whatever you're searching and the word scam after it, and it just it'll pop up negative reviews or people trying to scam people on stuff. And
or use the word reviews. That usually will click the scam button up too.
Put your own name in and put scam and see what comes up. You want to feel really excited.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. No.
Find out all the things you're involved in that you didn't know about.
Why do you think I get the mustache now? Don't do that.
What is protection program? I downloaded it on the computer, but I haven't played with it yet. A voice changer program. So crazy stuff, yeah. One of the things we were talking about doing Amazon earlier before is one of the things I get all the time are these ASIN change notices and ASIN merge notices. You need to pay attention to those.
Yes.
Because you just look at them and you need to look at what it says, what it was, and you click on it, you disagree, and you get a more expanded look at what the proposed change is, and you can answer it if you disagree with it. So it gives you a chance to make a comment. But they may be doing just like you sort of touched on it before earlier, Desi, that Dusty, is that you may have just not paid attention when you listed something, or when you first get started, the listing's a little bit overwhelming, and you just list on something because somebody else was selling it on that listing, and you've never dealt with that before with eBay, with Amazon, you list differently. So you listed something, because I ended up with that myself. I'm trying to figure out, I have this book on parakeet care, and I can't figure out what's wrong with it. And then all of a sudden, a ASIN change came up on it. It was parakeet care, and it was listed under musical instruments. And I'm thinking, like, what? How did that get there? And I went back and looked, and that was it. It was like somebody had mislisted it, and I just jumped on that listing.
Sure.
And
Jimmy Buffett
so the
had
ASIN change can sometimes throw you into a place that's better, and some kind can put you in a place where you're at risk because you're not providing what that ASIN says it's now providing. And you better be looking closer to your product and pulling it out of there. You're going to be getting some bad feedback and put your account at jeopardy. So don't ignore them.
So what would you do if I know I've got how do I react to those? You just answer to it?
The first thing, I always disagree with it, because that allows me to see more of what it's about, what the proposed changes are, what the wording was, and what it's going to.
There will be a button in that email that will say here to comment. It's actually a little bit. There's kind of an algorithm behind it, but it is a little bit based on agree or disagree of people that submit their answers. There's also what's called detail page control, which is kind of lets one person control it a little more. But yeah, that agree, like OG said, it's definitely put in your agree or disagree, but don't ignore those. I read through every single one of them, and I get 10 or 15 or whatever a week. Don't ignore them. If it's a description change or something easy, yeah, you can skim over it, but make sure you keep on top of your stuff, because people are constantly merging.
Make sure the description change is valid, and that your item still meets that description change.
Well, but I get it the most on, like, I got some Disney Beanie Babies I sent in, and I swear to God, people are changing those like every other day, and the descriptions will be like something minimal.
I've had listings going back and forth and 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 back and forth.
And basically, that's people that use feeds to upload stuff to Amazon for changes, and it's kind of all done automated, and it's usually just crappy sellers doing it. But you still need to pay attention to them. That's a huge one. Because, I mean, there's a lot of sellers out there that get caught with their pants down and end up suspended, and they're like, well, I never knew there was an ASIN change.
Slimming.
I didn't know that my 1-pack of deodorant changed to a 6-pack 3 months ago. Well, did you read the ASIN change notification you got? I mean, unfortunately, that sucks because that guy that sold the 1-pack originally, I mean, was technically in the right, but when he got changed, he should have noticed it, you know?
Right. Right.
Yeah, that'll get you. Yeah, Andy Slamans, I think, was somebody who was a $1 million seller on Amazon, you know, and he lost his account over not paying attention to his ASIN changes and things like that, and something came up like that he didn't even have in stock anymore, but he ignored it, and they nailed him on it because it was still quote unquote in his inventory.
Right. Hey guys, Valerie just put in our side chat that she just found out she's going to be a grandma again. So I'll give her congratulations.
Wow, congratulations.
Congrats.
Yay, congratulations.
I looked at the side chat to make sure you asked her permission. I was like, oh, dear God, did you read that out loud? You did ask her permission. I was like, oh, damn, that's awkward. That's
Follow
awesome.
our own rules.
Yeah, my daughter has
Rules.
she has twins. She has 5-month-old twins,
Oh my gosh.
and she found out she was pregnant. She's 4 months along, and yeah.
How
So
So your son is impatient, is what you're saying.
So what you're saying is no, I just offended all the Catholics. I'm sorry. I have friends that are Catholics, and we make jokes like that, and they're okay with it. So I'm sure there's a lot of Catholics that aren't. But
yeah,
Catholics.
it was quite the shock. But I did find something interesting about having twins. This one that's due is actually due in the same year. So when you have twins and then another one that's going to be born in the same year, they're called Irish twins.
Irish twins, yeah.
are you serious?
Yeah,
Why is that Irish?
I don't
They
know.
can't stop fucking.
Run the numbers. 4.5 months pregnant with 5-month-old babies.
I guess I just.
This is on Jim's channel.
I went a little subtle with that, but no, that's okay.
They should be on Jim's channel more often. Every day.
Jim's channel.
Where's the potty mouth sign when you need it?
Right.
Oh my gosh! So you know what? I know.
Yeah, I didn't want to bring that up, but I did a little quick napkin math there, and it said a pair of 5-month-old twins, and this singlet she has is now 4.5 months along. And I'm thinking, that's like two weeks.
Yeah.
You got to be Irish and Catholic, yeah.
This one's for you, Dawn. I know you're in the audience. This one's for you.
You know, and I'm half Irish, half Scottish, and my wife is the majority Irish, and I didn't get that. I didn't know that. You know what? Okay.
No, I'd never heard that either. So.
I thought they just drank a lot and ate potatoes.
You don't want to know what else they do with potatoes.
Hey!
I have
Right,
to
Neil?
tell you, anybody that's watching, Harley Woman's in the audience. That's Dawn. When we have hangouts once in a while, we always get. She has a potty mouth sign to everybody. So we always tend to do things that kind of instigate, kind of like this one, you know. And then we have the actual, you know, the potty mouth sign itself. I mean, I haven't looked any further because I always kind of like this one, so we just have to keep them on the ready. But Dawn's got her own handmade one, so thanks, Dawn. We started the trip with us.
I have handmade signs. I have handmade signs with my name on my Dusty Potty Man. I have apparently there's like 4 of them with my name on them. I don't know why I have that many, but
I know why.
Like you're right. But you know what? And that's what. And I know we've talked a lot about reselling, and we've had a lot of fun. But that's what the show was intended to kind of be. I mean, I think OG, and we've mentioned that before, but OG used to. You remember the days, because hell, you were on the Toadcast before I was ever on. But this is kind of. It was, Sean Murphy. Give a little shout out to him. He came up with the original great idea of the Toadcast, which I think was on Friday nights. I can't remember, but it was like a weekend night. Let your hair down as a reseller. Sometimes the conversation got a little crazy. Sometimes it just kind of came with a PG-13 warning to begin with, but it was just kind of, just a place, because I think we're all stressed out as resellers. It's a fun job, but being your own boss in any kind of business is a little bit stressful, and just a place to, whether you drink or not, although the name implies drinking with happy hour possibly, but
Irish Catholic especially.
And with me, I haven't drank anything actually in a couple of days, and tonight I was going to hang out with the guys, and I was like, "You're getting in my car with me," and I took the phone with me. I was like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "I want a Bloody Mary." So, and sometimes it will. Sometimes people will say things a little crazy, whatever, but it's just ultimately at the end of the day a bunch of adults having fun and.
Yeah, well, I'm going to throw you under the bus now, Dusty, because it's not just going in the car when he goes to take liquid in. He's taking us to the bathroom when he's letting liquid out.
I had the phone in my hand, so I set it over on the bathroom sink, and they're like, "What are we looking at?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's my bathroom ceiling." They're like, "Are you paying?" And I'm like, "Yeah, totally. I mean, what? I mean, the phone's over there. You're staring at the ceiling. I mean, whatever."
I've been looking for it, but one of the trades that I collected along the way in my many and varied careers was as a thermographer, infrared pictures. And when I first got my camera, I was running around shooting pictures of everything. And you've seen them. They're like in the Predator movie with the reverse image and the red and stuff like that, and with the reverse image, artificial colored image. Anyway, so one of the things I did is I'm taking a leak into the toilet, so I take a picture of that. So because we have the cold water, it's got one color and a stream of a liquid and everything else, but it's abstract because it's weird colors and things like that, and nobody really figures out what it is. So I cropped this thing and I made an avatar out of that, and I used that avatar in a lot of places, and only one person ever copped to what it was.
We're going to lose half our audience because they're all going to have to go to the bathroom now.
Every time he goes outside.
I still have that camera. I'll have to make another one. Because I can't find that picture.
Yeah.
Well, you never know. I see that in a couple of comments. John was cool. You never know. We might very well see him on here. So, hopefully. Yeah, it's a cool show. That's the whole thing we want to have is fun and a little bit of letting your hair down, even though I don't have any hair let down anymore. But, just
I'm letting mine down tonight.
I see you join so much. See, yours is voluntary. Mine's not.
There were a few classic Toadcasts, I'll tell you. There were some 4-hour drunken brawls, and
he would have the Halloween special or the Christmas special, and everybody would show up in Halloween costumes, and that was right before I kind of came around, because I came around in late October, early November of 2014, so I kind of missed it. And I remember sitting and watching them though, but I mean it was just you never knew what was going to happen. It was just funny and fun.
Yeah.
So. And apparently with Jim Bennett, who just left to go to the bathroom. Apologize for Jim. He has explosive diarrhea tonight, and
that's why we're going now, probably.
Huh?
That's why we got to pay back now, probably.
This is where you embarrass people.
I think right back.
Very cool.
When people say they'll be right back and they turn their camera off, that's the best time to have fun with them. Sorry, OG, you were echoing really bad, and a couple of people said something about it, and I was sorry. Antique toothpicks, yeah, that was another thing.
So, does anybody else have anything else that's kind of on their mind in the audience or in the panel or whatever, or any other questions that maybe we haven't gotten to or whatever. So, certainly please ask. We're trying to watch both ends here and make sure we're not missing anything. And hopefully we didn't miss any questions from earlier. And if we did, please repeat them and we'll try to get to them. So, anyway. All right.
I had a question for Neil about David Hasselhoff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you keep asking me? Jim's the one who keeps putting the damn picture out.
Oh, blame it on him.
I didn't know there were that many pictures that existed of him in those seductive manners.
Well, he was on Baywatch, so of course he appeared in like male bikini or whatever. Yeah, don't go search David Hasselhoff under Google.
In lingerie and everything else in the world. I mean, he went into a deep David Hasselhoff search, man.
I think at one point in this group message, Neil even goes, "What is wrong with you people?"
Yeah. Yeah. Not that it's wrong.
Brian would like to know, Brian, the Albatross / my buddy Posey / Tennessee, Johnson City, Tennessee Commissioner, would like to know what is the best item to sell on eBay?
Gold.
Gold. and black diamond VHS tape.
Yes.
Gold. That was a good answer. And Apple products, because of course.
That's a done deal.
How about the item that you know the best?
None, Cheryl, and none.
Yes, Cheryl Ann had another question. Neil, what type of stash wax do you use?
None, Cheryl Ann.
Yeah. That's the copper mustache.
Jim, do you have a full line of Hasselhoff lingerie that you wear?
No, but I'm gathering up a lot of Hasselhoff naughty pictures.
Yeah, I was wondering. They're just like,
They're the best.
Do you have anything autographed by the Hass? By Hass?
Yeah. Jim, are you part chameleon? Because you're starting to get about the same color as your background.
It's because I'm outside like all the time now.
Yeah, you are. Good question.
You weren't red at the beginning of the show.
Maybe
it's the Hass. It's the Hoffer. The Hoffer makes them red.
The Hoffer. Parrothead Picker wants to know if anybody uses. I know we've touched on this before, but if anybody uses promoted sales on eBay, and if they've had, for those that have, if they've had any stories that are actually positive to tell.
Never used it.
Never used it.
I tried it 3 times and got nothing.
Yeah, I've tried it a couple times, and I haven't. I don't know that I could. Well, I know I can't attribute any actual direct sales to it, but much like everything else, it seems like, even if I'm in a lull in selling, it seems like when I do any kind of activity in there, and that being one of them, I do tend to generate sales. So I don't know if that's got something to do with it, even just to bring people to the store and they buy something else. I mean, there's always that possibility, but I've tried it a couple times. I'm not going to give up on it, but so far myself, no luck on actually attributed direct sales to it yet.
Jim, didn't you have something with promoted listings or not?
I've never promoted a single listing. I've run like sales events for the whole stores, which is different than Markdown Manager. I've done that where you can save an extra 10% when you're buying. So you have your 10% Markdown Manager plus the extra 10% when you check out. I've done that and with marginal success.
But that would work good. That's what it was you were telling me about. And the time you told me about that, I was like, wait a minute, is he talking about whatever? But so that would actually work if you had a store where, like, Neil sells a lot of like graphic tees, or if you're selling a lot of the same type of, where people would stick around in your store and go, okay, I can add so many more items to my cart, get an additional 10% off.
Right.
And you've had marginal success.
Right. Just because, I do sell different things, so, but I do sell a lot of clothing. So I guess, if somebody's in there looking for a shirt and they say, oh, well, I need so many 2X shirts, let me just look while I'm here. But I don't know. I don't focus on my store to get me sales as much as the eBay listing page. So I don't advertise my store a whole lot. So
Black Eye Joe said, your thoughts on eBay sponsored ads shown to buyers after they make payments. Of course, is higher rate of returns, cheaper price for seller items. So what I think he's referencing is, after a buyer buys an item of yours, and then you get that sold page that pops up. And I don't know that they may or may not see that directly, but I know if you go back to check a sold, a lot of times you'll see, comparatives, and it may very well happen. But one of the things I would say is just because the price is cheaper, it doesn't always mean it's the better deal. I do see that from time to time, and I specifically see a lot of times on Amazon, even when they're in their listings, they show different variations of it, and you can boil down to checking to see what the shipping terms are. Is it a new item? Is it used? Or whatever. And so you have to still look at the details to determine if it really is, in fact, a better deal or not. Unfortunately, there are cases that they very well may be. Whether it attributes to an actual higher return, I would hope that if that's the case, somebody's going to be, your buyer is going to state that, hey, I just found this cheaper, they want their money back. In that case, I would think it'd be a little bit easier for you to argue, number one, if you were going to argue it, or number two, maybe just give them a little bit of a discount if it is, in fact, an apples-to-apples comparison, just to keep the sale. So, any other thoughts from the panel on that or in the audience would be great to hear, too.
They're now, Parrot Head is following up to the original thing about
Yeah.
promoted listings and saying, reason for the question was, I was reading in a Facebook group, this woman was going on about a 68% increase in sales, just seemed, because of promoted listings, just seemed a bit far-fetched. And then somebody named Miriam also said, I read that too, Parrot Head. So apparently someone somewhere has said something in a Facebook group. My thing really with, it's like anything, it's like any group, any forum, whatever. I would, unless the lady's willing to, show some proof behind. I mean, that's amazing. If she did, I'd like to know exactly what she did, which kind of almost tells me that maybe either her inventory was extremely overpriced to begin with, or something was, maybe she ran a dramatic thing with promoted listings where she gave away a big percentage of it. And I can't remember what's the most you can do, is like 25 or 30% with those, I think.
Or the other side coin, though, too, Doxy, is she could certainly be doing it to promote her own store and get people to drive traffic there by saying that as well.
Or she might have said, check my store out and see it for sure. And, I mean, I don't know. It's just, that's kind of playing devil's advocate of both sides of it. I mean, she might be totally legit, but one random stranger coming in and saying that without any kind of proof, when everybody else that I've ever been on a show with that I've said this same kind of, has anybody ever seen that? And everybody just sits there and goes, nope, nothing, nope.
And I'm on my promotions page now, manage promotions, and you can create a promotion for an order discount, shipping discount, accessory discount, sale event, or codeless coupon. So if she's using one of those,
that's promotions, whereas promoted listings are a totally separate thing. So that lady may have been actually being, like you
talking
said,
about promotions,
talking about a totally different thing. So I don't know. That'd be interesting to see. So give the lady the link, tell her to join in.
I mean, you can always try it out. I don't think it costs you much, if anything, does it?
We'll bring her on. It doesn't. The only thing it does is you basically bid with
It's a
the
paper.
listing. You say, if you promote my listing and one of these items that already have listed sells, and typically it needs to be items that you have in bulk, is what I found, because it won't let you promote all your listings. It's usually items you have more than one of. And you offer them anywhere between like 1% and 30, it's like 30 or 40%, I don't remember, extra additional fees if your item actually sells. So it's no risk. It's a no risk kind of thing. If you have an item that you paid $1 for that you're getting $14.99 for, and you have 300 of those widgets, I mean, hell yeah, give them 30% to get your stuff bumped up. But I tried that on stuff that I had like that, and I didn't get any extra sales because of it. And it'll show you the results of what you got, and the end results were 0 sales.
Right.
But yet I still sold the same item. I sold it anyhow that same week. I just didn't get anything off their promoted listings. So.
Cool. I think this is a good spot to shut down. We've been on for almost 3 hours now, and I know there's a lot of chat going on, chat activity and stuff. So, but I think coming up on midnight, if you guys are up for an after show to hang out for a little bit, we could do that.
Yeah, thank you for coming. You're welcome to come and join the after show. We'll hang out for a little bit.
I'm good for a little while.
Absolutely.
All right. I think we're getting like an echo, but I feel like I'm in a submarine. So, good. Oh, somebody just got muted. Sorry.
Well, I did it to Dana. We got a little feedback on his again. I'm sorry, Dana.
I thought it was a good show. We do have, you know what, if you didn't want me to make this announcement, I guess it's probably too late, but we are working on another channel that is going to be specifically dedicated to being called, at some point, the Reseller Happy Hour type YouTube channel, where we'll have more of a dedicated channel, so we're not necessarily bouncing around as much. That's something we're kind of working on, setting up the graphics, things like that. Should I have not said that? Can we erase that? Can we rewind that? But yeah, it's going to be more on more of a dedicated channel. That's not going to belong to any one single person, and that way, if Jim's out of town, you know, Joe can start it, or if Joe's out of town, I can start it, or if I'm out of town, whatever, you know, just kind of be a little more with the, you know, the base core of just a little more centrally located instead of being on one specific person's channel. So kind of working on that a little bit. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, and we're also going to run that channel ad-free. We're not going to even collect ad money from it. So
it's free. It's like public television for real.
Right. Yeah. We're like PBS with curses.
Except we won't have those really cool auctions at the end of the year. Remember when they used to do those in like the 80s on PBS, and you could score some like really freaking cool. It was like Bob Ross original painting, and you call in on your telephone. It was like, let's go for $12. It supports your local PBS. Call now. There's lines open. I love those.
A lot of that stuff is going for real good money now when you can show the paperwork and everything from that.
Right.
I remember watching those.
A lot of it was from the old WTTWWs, like Sesame Street stuff and all that, which is real collectible.
Yeah.
That's why, or some of the English episodes, which are really big. Yeah, there's a lot of really.
Yeah, Thrift Daddy just said, who gets all the YouTube millions done? I just said, no one, it's free. But the reality is we did have some discussion about that, thinking about if it was monetized and then give the money back to the, you know, maybe the community. But we chose rather to keep it as basically a free channel, and then we are actually having some discussions about maybe down the road doing some giveaways or things like that for different things that we know would be helpful to new resellers or even experienced people or whatever that may not have an item or device that would be interested. You know, we'll chip in and do it that way. And yes, it comes out of our own pockets, but at least it shows that, you know, we really do want to help build a community and have people, you know, hopefully come and watch and enjoy and have fun and maybe learn something and possibly, you know, help them along in another way too.
So there you go, the PBS of reselling.
Plus, Dusty has a lot of money, so he can afford to get most of it.
Yeah,
so,
right.
And I've got my Bob Ross wig though that I'm gonna dig out of the closet and my Hasselhoff shorts and
some happy.
And we'll have an auction one night.
Paint us some happy little trees, you know.
Right.
Yeah, the autographed picture of Jim the Hasselhoff shorts.
Jim in his happy Hasselhoff shorts.
That's gonna be. That's gonna be.
You know how much nut would show? It'd be awful. All right, guys, let's end it there. Let's end it at.
Jim, maybe just see if there's any last words for me on the panel. I know that Eric, thank you very much for coming on. Valerie, sorry Sally had to leave early. Dana, anybody. I mean, Jordan, you know, if you'd like to say a couple last words.
I think Jim just did, kind of.
I enjoyed being on. Anytime you want me on, I'm here. So
you're welcome on anytime.
Eric, you were good. You've got a lot more, and Valerie, I don't know. Valerie and Sally, I've only got to meet, you know, not a lot. I think there's a lot more to their stories, but it's also, you know, you don't want to throw somebody underneath the bus as well and go, hey, tell everybody about that time, what you told me in the hangout. And they're like, I didn't really want to tell that. You know, that's my personal life. or what, you know. So there's that kind of. As a matter of fact, with Eric, I didn't even get to see. I saw Eric for like 5 minutes before the show started. So, and literally with Valerie, the same thing. But
I'm an open book. Anybody can say anything they want about me. It doesn't bother me at all. So
I like that.
No,
Valerie,
I
same
appreciate you guys having me on, and you know, Sally, and it was a pleasure. You know, it was fun, and we got to learn a couple of different things. And I have a little notebook of, you know, just a lot of random things, but they're all reseller related. So I'm still learning every day.
You guys have a show too, right?
Don't write down the stuff Jim just said. I did like write that down.
Please
Hey,
don't.
Valerie, plug your show that you and Sally have. And tell them what your official, so they can search it. What your official title is on YouTube.
It's Thrifting Bitches Reselling is the channel, and we just did a show today, so there should be a YouTube video, a current YouTube video, and you know, we usually try and do it when Sally's off work or when it's convenient for her. So usually once or twice a week, but we'll put some good content in there, and
it's Thrifting without the G. It's just the N and
correct. And the little apostrophe.
the little, which I think YouTube might pick it up in the search either way. Jordan, plug your channel.
All right, man. I actually started YouTube not too long ago, but actually I've been putting out a lot of videos. So, you know what? Just go ahead and type in Jordan Flack, and it'll pop right up. I know I could have thought of some crazy, awesome name, but I'm just like, I'm just gonna use what I have, and it's working so far.
Jim and I were going to start our own channel, but Valerie and Sally we couldn't take their name away.
And everybody, if you liked the show tonight or you enjoyed what you heard, you know, please give us a thumbs up. We really appreciate it, and you know, tell your friends, tell anybody you know. I mean, come watch, and you know, again, it's one big hangout, and we just want to have fun and enjoy the night. You know.
That's it.
Good deal.
All right,
Guys, okay, I'll post the link up in the side chat here in a minute. And thanks for coming out, and subscribe to everybody. I'll try to get everybody's link into the description of the show as well, so look for that a little bit later on. But otherwise, have a good night, guys.
Thanks, you too.
Come on in.
See ya. We appreciate